Okay, we're back from the break. And item 10B from Human Resource Director.
Yes. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. Hediye Khojavi, Human Resources Director. This evening, I will be providing the Council with the annual report regarding City's status of vacant positions. This report outlines the City's workforce composition, vacancy trends, and strategies to attract and retain employees. While recruitment and hiring remain top priorities, the City also focuses on long-term retention through incentive programs, internal promotion opportunities, and workplace improvements such as various work schedules, professional development, and employee engagement initiatives. Before I begin the presentation, I'd like to extend my thanks to Assistant City Manager, Mr. Danny Santana, and Finance Director, Mr. Ian Daly, for their guidance and support in preparation of this report. Also to the amazing human resources and civil service team members for their teamwork spirit and care for all employees. Next slide, please. On September 22, 2024, Governor Newsom signed Assembly Bill 2561 into law. AB 2561 added California Government Code Section 3502.3, which requires public agencies to hold a public meeting at least once per fiscal year to report on vacancy, recruitment status, and retention efforts. In accordance to AB 2561, public agencies must also highlight hiring challenges and potential policy obstacles. During these public meetings, employee organizations are entitled to present their perspectives on the report. If vacancy rates in a bargaining unit reach a 20% vacancy rate or greater, a represented employee organization may request that agencies provide further details on the number of vacancies, applicant numbers for vacant positions, hiring timelines, and opportunities for improving compensation and other working conditions. Next slide, please. As of December 31st, 2024, the City had 1,410 full-time equivalent FTE positions budgeted for full-time and part-time positions and 197 vacant FTE for an approximately 13.95% vacancy rate. Between January 1st, 2024 and December 31st, 2024, the City had 174 separations, 206 new hires, and 120 promotions. This data excludes temporary, seasonal, or recurrent staffing. The City established approximately the same number of eligibility lists in 2023, but experienced a 15% increase in the average number of candidates per eligible list in 2024. Next slide, please. This slide shows the recruitment metrics for the 2022 through 2024 calendar years. Due to the collaborative efforts between the Human Resources Department and Communications Division in using the City's social media platforms and other recruitment strategies, we've experienced a larger number of applications. Next slide, please. This slide shows the total number of vacancies for 2022 through 2024 calendar years. Your honorable body's support of long-term and competitive labor agreements is a key component to the City's success in improving its vacancy rates. Next slide, please. This table shows the number of vacant FTE and percentage of total vacancies by each employee group or bargaining unit, both represented and unrepresented units. As of December 31st, 2024, the vacancy rate for each bargaining group was under 20%, except for Torrance Police Commanders Association, or TPCA, police lieutenant with a 25%, and police safety management, police captains with a 33% vacancy rate. Next slide, please. This slide shows a breakdown of budgeted positions, filled positions, vacant positions, and vacancy percentages for the police captains and police lieutenants. Next slide, please. The reason for over 20% vacancy rate for the police lieutenants is that we're currently in negotiations for the promotional examination process. The police captain vacancy is currently on hold pending the conclusion of ongoing personnel matters. Next slide, please. Since police lieutenants and police captains have a higher than 20% vacancy rate, according to AB 2561, on this slide, I'm sharing greater details on the number of vacancies, recruitment timeline, applicant numbers, and opportunities for improving compensation and other working conditions. Due to negotiations with respect to the promotional exam process for lieutenant vacancies, recruitment has not started. Therefore, there's no stats to report for 2024. However, the recruitment stats in 2023, before the negotiation process began, are shown in this table. Next slide, please. This slide shows the recruitment stats for police captain. Next slide. The Human Resources Department recognizes that recruitment is about identifying, attracting, and hiring the right people. Recruitment is critical for the organization's success, especially in today's competitive job market. Thank you to your honorable body's continued support. The following recruitment efforts were implemented. Out of respect for everybody's time, I will not read all on this list, only focus on a few. Hiring bonuses for the hard-to-recruit positions, efficient hiring and testing procedures to streamline the process, and close collaboration with police department staff liaisons and human resources staff. Next slide, please. Hiring referral program, revising job descriptions by shifting the focus from education and experience to skills and competencies. Next slide, please. Filling vacancies and recruiting top talent are critical to delivering core services to the community and carrying out your honorable body's priorities. But retaining that talent is equally essential for sustaining long-term success and minimizing future vacancies. While the city has improved in employee retention, internal workforce trends are shifting. Several challenges such as economic uncertainty, changes in the retirement formula, classic versus PEPRA, and a general reduction in employee longevity in any organization are a few reasons the city may struggle to recruit and retain qualified employees as experienced employees resign and retire. One of the retention efforts is that we're proposing civil service changes to the rules and process to streamline and expedite the hiring process. The Human Resources Department is presently collaborating with the Civil Service Division and the City Attorney's Office in a review of municipal code sections that will be forwarded to Civil Service Commission for awareness and to your honorable body for consideration of areas to further enhance the recruitment process for promotions and new employee opportunities. These municipal code updates would be in addition to your honorable body's directed active retention efforts listed in the next slides. The retention efforts, for example, the new multi-year bargaining unit contracts, employee recognition and engagement programs and events, the city manager's one-on-one meetings with staff to get to know them and inform them about council's goals and expectations and citywide projects. It also provides an open line of communication. Professional development opportunities and the Clifton Strengths Finder assessment. The year-round employee recognition and engagement programs and events, the compressed work week such as 980 and 410 work schedule, and encourage employees to use their paid time off, prioritizing physical and mental well-being, employee assistance program, and department heads and managers are trained to provide regular performance feedback to employees and to recognize accomplishments, big and small. Conclusions and recommendations. To summarize, your honorable body have supported a number of employee retention and recruitment efforts that are making considerable progress in addressing vacancies citywide. The two police command positions discussed earlier remain an area of priority. The addition of recruitment strategies will assist with boosting those recruitments following the conclusion of present associated labor negotiations and ongoing personnel matters. Staff recommends that the honorable body take the following action on item 10B. Accept and file the 2024 annual report on the city's status of vacant positions. This concludes my presentation, and staff is available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. This moment, I'm going to go to the public. I assume the machine is down. Anyone in the public who wishes to speak on this item, please come to the microphone.
Hello. I hope Matucci was listening. 25% in that one division in the police department, 33% in the other department. So the dumbass was arguing with they are not underfunded. When you don't have enough employees to do the job, when you don't have money or just don't want to pay them, so you save money, that's mean underfunded, Matucci. I hope you listened. And, you know, that's not a wonder. It's not wonder because you had police officers painting swastikas, emailing to each other, paying $3 million because our police department and the police officers are bastards. And then you wonder, you persecute 15 police officers, you are under 33%. I hope you hear this, Matucci. You understand, 33%.
Your time is up, sir. Anyone else from the public who wishes to speak? Okay, I'll come up to the council. Any members of the council have questions or comments? Please click in. I don't see any, so I'll take a motion to accept and file the 2024 annual report.
I move to accept and file the 2024 annual report on the city's status of vacant positions and recommend that the city council direct staff to continue with the employee engagement, recruitment, and retention efforts in place and presently underway.
Second.
Start voting, please. Your Honor, that motion carried with Councilmember Kalani absent.
Thank you. As I shared earlier, we're going to pull up item 10C on the e-bike. While we're pulling that up, just want to make sure we have a group back there. Are you here for the Rose Float? And then you're going to leave right after that? Okay. You know what, I think I'll do e-bike and then I'll do you guys before we do the public hearing on the budget. Does that sound about right? I just want to look at city staff. I just want to make sure. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I see them. They've been singing in there. Yeah. Okay, let's do 10C right now. From the police chief.
Good evening, Mayor Jay Hart, Chief of Police. PD does have a presentation. I'd like to call up Lieutenant Fisher.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Council. My name is Lieutenant Charles Fisher. I'm with the Traffic and Special Events Division of the Torrance Police Department. Tonight I'm here seeking direction regarding the drafting of a municipal ordinance specifically intended to regulate electric bicycles or e-bikes. Next slide, please. A brief synopsis of what I intend to present today. Background and purpose, how we got here, and really a current snapshot from the PD's perspective related to this topic. I intend to touch on some trends, some Torrance specific, and also some drawn from Southern California in general. I want to touch on significant safety concerns that have and are likely to continue to result in injuries to Torrance citizens if we don't make some changes. Finally, while we're here, I'm going to share some current challenges facing our officers who are doing their best to address this now commonplace mode of transportation. And I'd like to conclude by providing a staff recommendation and hopeful next steps moving forward. Next slide, please. I think you and I and everyone in attendance have seen a surge in e-bike popularity throughout the city in recent years, months, years. We've seen significant increase in youth ridership. With that, those of us in public safety specifically, and I think I can speak for our partners at TFD, we have growing safety concerns on this topic. The unsafe use of e-bikes and electric motorcycles on roadways, sidewalks, and in particular our parks and surrounding trails has become concerning. And as my team has made an effort to respond, to enforce when necessary and ensure public safety, we have been able to identify some enforcement limitations to our efforts. Next slide, please. Our first steps was to try and gauge how large of a problem we were dealing with. In October 2024, TPD began collecting data in three categories. You see them on the screen there: e-bike patrol info, e-bike traffic stops, and 415 e-bikes. And I'll take the time to explain each one there. E-bike patrol info is a situation where a citizen would call and relay some problem that's not necessarily happening in real time. Long-term problem at a park, something that's not happening now. E-bike traffic stop is pretty self-explanatory. That's a marked police unit or police motorcycle conducting an enforcement action on an e-bike. And then 415 e-bike. 415 is our code for disturbances. So just an e-bike causing some type of disturbance as reported by a citizen, driving recklessly, causing some issues at a park, etc. Keep in mind, please, that this is a very difficult activity to track. Citizens and officers often mistake e-bikes for traditional bikes. Traffic collisions or injuries resulting from this activity often are not reported at all to the police department. But as you can see, these stats, although not drastic, 6 months of data collection has produced a relatively significant impact on the PD. Next slide, please. Regional trends and data. So the Beach Cities Health Districts, I think, has gathered some data that I think is relevant to this topic. They conducted this study in March of 23, and that data is relevant. Ultimately, they completed a study of all South Bay, or not all South Bay, but a variety of South Bay schools, elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. And they gathered data in terms of how many bikes were on campus, and of those bikes, how many were e-bikes. The ultimate conclusion was that 2/3, 66% of the bikes on campuses were e-bikes. If you break it down by type of school, middle schools were 51% e-bikes, and high schools a staggering 81% e-bikes. And keep in mind, this was early 23, so those numbers are likely significantly amplified by now. Next slide, please. Thank you. Here you'll see a chart revealing e-bike crashes. This is a San Diego County chart, but I think it's indicative of the trend. The yellow line up top highlights a relatively steady number of crashes with traditional bicycles. You can see it ranging from 2018 to 23. Obviously, no significant technology advances with bicycles during that period, so it's pretty steady crashes. But the red line or the darker line, you can see the sharp spike in 21. Likely due to both popularity, obviously, of e-bikes, but also just the technological advances and the speeds exceeding at that point in time. The situation got so bad in the city of Carlsbad in San Diego County that they declared a state of emergency. They reported a 233% increase in bike and e-bike collisions. And of those collisions, 63% were e-bike specific. So a really bad situation there we're trying to avoid. Next slide, please. The Children's Hospital of Orange County, injury data. They are an outstanding resource in terms of data for juveniles specifically. And I think they really can capture on the healthcare side what we're missing in the field. They even went as far to publish the most impacted age groups related to the spike in injuries. You can see the most common injuries of hospital admittance is 14 to 16 years old, followed by 11 to 13. So very concerning there. And then you see the types of injuries. Not only is the quantity increasing from 19 to 24 significantly, but the level of trauma is very concerning. And again, that reflects back on the speed of these versus traditional bicycles. Next slide, please. National Institute of Health, also valuable data. Pediatric e-bike injuries rising, obviously. They released data highlighting these injuries, and it was basically captured from e-bike specific hospital visits. I thought it was interesting to see the majority of injured riders being male, although not surprising. Almost all not wearing helmets. Also of note, the hospitalization rate for e-bike related accidents was 11.5% as opposed to less than 5% for traditional bicycles. Again, this is likely related to the speed at which these accidents occur that drastically increase the level of injury. Next slide, please. Here you can see some of the enforcement challenges we've identified when trying to curtail dangerous and often disruptive behavior on this topic. The California Vehicle Code asserts that e-bikes are in fact bicycles. So I'll reiterate that. E-bikes are in fact bicycles, and therefore all violations applicable to bicycles also apply to e-bikes. However, although that's helpful, the laws are designed to apply to traditional bicycles. So my team is left with limitations in enforcement. They're left with some ambiguity and often clear authority to regulate unsafe behavior, high-risk areas, and distracted riding as well. Next slide, please. ImmuniCode will allow us to potentially close those enforcement gaps. We can essentially define unsafe e-bike operation, which will be extremely helpful rather than being limited to use only a reckless driving charge that often brings with it rather extreme penalties. It will also allow us to potentially be able to prohibit dangerous behaviors that lead to injury, things like wheelies, handlebar riding, sidewalk speeding, etc. Also while regulating use on sidewalks, parks, and trails, which would be beneficial to my team. Next slide, please. Proposed ordinance elements, and again, these are just proposed, and this is a request to just explore this further. We'll focus on prohibiting unsafe riding in public places. Currently, we rely on reckless driving charges, as I mentioned. However, unsafe behavior does not always rise to the level of that crime. It does not meet those elements often. We would also like to explore expanding sidewalk restriction to areas beyond business districts as it currently is. And also potentially propose restrictions on handheld devices while riding, similar to cars. Next slide, please. Thank you. Staff recommendation. Direct staff to draft a municipal code where we can define unsafe e-bike operation clearly and applicably, regulate use in shared spaces such as parks, provide police enforcement authority, and we also think it's imperative that we support youth and community safety through education on this topic. Next slide, please. I've already had successful meeting with TUSD. I know some council members were present for that. And we intend to implement an educational campaign targeting Torrance youth. TUSD has offered to assist us by distributing safety newsletters intended to educate parents and also help us with joint social media campaigns to provide additional safety tips for students. We also aim to partner with local bike retailers, our partners at Fire, and also noting the impact that I've already relayed on the healthcare industry. We'd like to reach out to local hospitals and maybe urgent care to help spread the message of these changes. Next slide, please. In closing, our police department, as you know, has a commitment to public safety. Protecting our youth and keeping our shared spaces safe is a priority. So our belief is that proactive regulation for this evolving trend is appropriate at this time. I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll go to the public first. Anyone from the public who has comments on this item, please come to the microphone. Got 1 minute per speaker.
In my travels in the South Bay, are there any protection devices that you can regulate? Helmets, shin guards. I mean, when you ride a bicycle, you wear a helmet. Can some of those items be identified that'll give you more enforcement criteria in doing your job if we put some more meat in the regulations that the rider has to assume some care thing? You know, he's responsible. You know, like you talked, 93% didn't have a helmet. Handheld devices, excessive speed. You see it all the time in Redondo Beach. So I'm just, I mean, I see your plight. You see it up. I see it up in Redondo Beach and the other coastal cities when I'm down in San Diego. I see it down there, and it's very dangerous. You know. So, good luck.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you for your comment, sir.
To answer this question, there are actual laws on the books for helmets. Depending on the classification of the e-bike, helmets are required for certain ages. It's confusing. It's confusing for the public. It's confusing for parents. There is potential that a municipal code could apply more restrictive safety mechanisms in that regard.
Go ahead.
Hi, Melissa Wright. I wanted to comment that as a member of the Students in Government Committee that read the essays from these 8th graders, this year we had a large amount increase. In fact, I would say went from 2 to probably 50 kids that wrote about e-bikes and e-bike safety this year. It was interesting to see what was concerning them. And so this is really good. The kids actually want it and they know what they need it. One was the education classes, maybe even having a course that they have to take. There was questions about an age restriction. So that's something I don't know if you're going to ever do. And the item that was brought up that I remember was there's apparently some way that they can alter these bikes to go faster than 35 miles an hour or 25 miles an hour, whatever it is. Maybe you would know more about the speeds, but that was sounded also very scary. So I just want to let you know it is a big item, a big safety issue. We've had some fatalities just this last couple of weeks.
Thank you. I know there are people who in the past, probably still today, could alter their vehicles to go faster too. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to tie on to what she's saying. I remember back when I went to school, you had to have a license, first of all, to bring your bike to school. You had to pass a test. I think these kids should have to do a driving test to know that they're safe, and they should have to have something to prove that they know what the rules are. The other thing I would like to see is some education on it, because I have a neighbor who she has trouble walking, and she's walking down the sidewalk and the kids come up with their e-bikes and tell her to move. She's too slow. And I see them cutting in and out of traffic. It's very scary to see how they're driving, and we just need to do something because somebody's going to get hurt real bad.
Thank you.
Thank you, my honor, again. My daughter was a victim of the e-bike fall, but I give God the glory that nothing happened to her. No fracture, no broken bone. They had to call me from the office, but this happened in Riverside because I came from Eastville. She's doing well, she's fine. Let's just be mindful and cautious of our kids, please.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public who wish to comment on this item?
Hi, great presentation, officer. The thing what struck me, the group of e-bike riders, 11 till 13 years. You know what I mean? So where I come from, to ride a motorized vehicle, like a moped, e-bikes is bikes, but they are motorized vehicles, you had to be 14. You had to pass a test. You know the rules of the road. And, these kids are riding bicycles that go like 40, 50 miles an hour easy, and they ride electric motorcycles. And last time when they attacked me, like 6 of them, in my street, I called the police. Guess what happened? No show. No show. You call for service, no show.
Anyone else wish to speak on this item?
Hello. I know y'all doing what you can, and I think having the license for the kids would be great because, like Bev said, when we were all kids, we had to go and get license. And yes, I did get a ticket for riding double on a bicycle when I was 16, which now it doesn't seem to matter. But, I watch these kids go down the street, and it's no helmets, and they're just blasting their way. And a person like me who does have an e-bike, I like to casually ride my bike and enjoy it. But I think it's more of the parents. The parents are buying these young kids bikes that are too much for them. So I applaud you for trying to do what you can, but I think a lot of it is their own parents need to be more mindful. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this item? Okay, I don't see any, so Councilwoman Lewis.
Thank you, Mayor. And this has been a long time coming. We've been working on this for about 18 months now. And I brought this item forward shortly after my grandson was hit head-on by an e-bike. And thankfully enough, when he was hit, there were no injuries, but I know there's not a lot of people that are that fortunate. And it was an 11-year-old that was adjusting a speaker on the front of his e-bike to turn up his music as he was riding down the street. As part of the Citizens Development Enrichment Committee, Dr. Gerson and I was able to go with Lieutenant Fisher to TUSD, and they too are having similar situations on their school grounds. So this is a perfect opportunity for the city and TUSD to partner to come up with a draft ordinance and also the educational piece behind it. We have some Torrance residents that one of them is, I'll mention her name, Dr. Helen Arbogast from Children's Hospital LA, who has offered to help us set up a traffic training garden so kids who desire to have e-bikes, depending on what type you have, they're learning how to safely operate the e-bikes, what to do in traffic hazardous conditions. So I am all for this draft ordinance. I would craft it myself if I could. Thank you to the police department and our wonderful traffic division and our ops team for finally getting it to this point. I know I'll be excited to see the training and the education piece that comes in with this, with the joint efforts between us, TUSD, and Children's Hospital of Orange County and Children's Hospital of LA. So I appreciate the effort.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you, Councilman Gerson.
I wasn't here when the council first started discussing it, but I certainly was on the school board discussing this. First, to let the public know, when I started working on this as a school board member, I was actually battling administration, TSD cabinet on this. So other cities had modeled this, and TPD was willing to do classes and tests and licensing, as members in the chamber have said. But it's all wonderful to offer the opportunity, but you have to get kids to show up. And so what I wanted to do was restrict them from bringing their e-bike onto campus unless they had, whether by sticker or card, however TPD did it, to show that they had successfully passed a class showing safety. Luckily, this decision will be made by school board members, and I encourage the public to push on their school board members to get involved, because I think we could really do a lot to educate and curb what's going on with a really strong collaboration. But it takes being a little strong on this. And while regulating something like a bicycle on campus is difficult and not something that we would want to do, I think it would have a huge impact because kids will want to ride their bike, and therefore they will need to take this class, and it goes down. As a teacher and former school board member, I challenged a lot of my generation of parent about what are we teaching our kids? Don't write your essay, use ChatGPT. Don't do your math, use photo math. Heck, you don't even have to pedal your bike anymore. So I challenge us, what are we really doing for our kids to get them e-bikes? Why are we doing it? And we need to ask ourselves that question. But on this, it is an area where I'm willing to go a little further, be a little more unpopular, because as you very well demonstrated by the statistics, the amount of injuries are growing. Every year that I stood in front of a Torrance Unified School doing my duty and just watching kids operate a normal powered bicycle, I saw kids getting hit by cars every single year. I saw them get hit in the front. I saw them get hit because they're racing behind a car that was backing up. I actually reached out and was able to get a grip on a kid's backpack and pull him out of a driveway as a car was making a sharp turn, as oncoming cars were coming at them and they rushed the turn too much. So these incidents are happening, and then as well demonstrated, now we have an increase of the number of injuries and the type of injuries because of the speed. Are we allowed, I know you discussed regulating speeding on sidewalks. How far are we allowed to go in public areas like parks? Because I know that in multiple neighborhoods, including my own, people have complained about e-bikes ripping up our common areas like grass areas. What can we do legally?
Well, it's a really a balance, right? I mean, we need to ask ourselves the question: do we want to limit proper users of e-bikes circling a park on a sidewalk, for example, versus the kids that are destroying the landscape on electric motorcycles, basically? So, some cities have gone as far as just you don't have an electric powered anything in a park. I'm not sure that's where council wants to go, or that's where we'll suggest ultimately we can explore that. I think there's a happy medium there, right? And where the sport or the activity can still be positive, but it's gone too far at this point, in my opinion.
Well, even kids pedaling as fast as they can through a park can injure a kid who's on a swing or in a sandbox. Legal's coming for it.
Perfect.
But now we're talking about excessive speed and less control and larger stopping distances. At the park by my house, every single day there are little kids on swings and in the sandbox and sliding down slides. And so legal, please tell me.
Jean Marie Litvin, City Attorney's Office. That's actually exactly why we're here tonight, is to seek direction from the council. The most challenging part of this is, like Lieutenant Fisher mentioned, an e-bike is a bicycle. We can't separate the regulation of those two things. So if we want to regulate the ability to ride e-bikes in parks, we will also be regulating the riding of regular human-powered pedaled bicycles in parks. That is certainly something that we can do. It can expand to public places, but we're seeking that type of guidance from you all tonight of how far do you want to go? Do you want to limit it in parks? What sidewalks do you want to limit it on? Do you want to limit it at the transit center, the civic center, or other public spaces? That's what we're looking for. But
Another
it will be
question.
regulating all bicycles, which is bicycles.
And I understand. So when you're traveling down an alley, 15 miles per hour, set speed limit. When you're in a residential area, 25 miles per hour. Like, we have set speed limits. What about park sidewalk? Is speed limit allowed to be addressed?
Are you talking about like paths through parks? We could set regulations, yes. I would defer to the traffic division about the ability to enforce
I don't know
speeds of bicycles in that type of location, though.
I've seen city ordinances, not obviously not ours, that categorize as unsafe electric bike usage, which from our perspective as enforcement is easy. I mean, you can recognize, anyone in this room can recognize unsafe e-bike usage, if it's wheelies, if it's, like you said, going through Wilson Park at 60 miles an hour. That's very clear. So I think there's opportunity there for language such as that. But again, we're going to have to work with legal on jumping through those obstacles.
Thank you.
Councilman Matucci.
Thank you for bringing this back, and I love the fact that we're actually attempting to do something here. Have we identified any other cities in California that have adopted ordinances and code that maybe we can use as a model?
Several. I believe in the documents I presented, the attachments, there's a couple examples. Some very local, some Inland Empire, Orange County, San Diego, very popular.
Okay. I mean, are they something that we'd like to, kind of follow those trends? Or
there's certainly elements that we liked and some we didn't, obviously. And again, the biggest challenge is working with legal and not overlapping enforcement opportunity we already have with new law, which isn't permitted. So.
Okay. I mean, what I've been seeing is like gangs like gangs of e-bikes. You know, they're doing street takeovers. I was on Torrance Boulevard a couple of months back, and a row got in front of traffic. They slowed down, so now there's a few cars that couldn't go regular speed, and a few people in front doing wheelies, and it's almost like a complete takeover. In situations like that, they may not actually be going fast. They're actually going slower, but they're actually blocking traffic and popping wheelies. So how will we handle something like that, and what are the well, I don't want to call it punishment, but yeah, we'll call it punishment. Is their bike going to be confiscated for 30 days and their parents get a bill for $2,500 for storage? Is that what's going to happen?
So again, it depends. Various classifications of e-bikes. What I think you're describing is most likely an electric motorcycle, like the Sur-Ron or those types that don't pedal anyway. They're basically electric dirt bikes. They shouldn't be on the road in general. So those can be impounded. Obviously, you can stop them just by seeing them on the roadway.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think that answers your question.
No, I mean, is there code that we can, put together that is, specific to, takeovers and?
Yeah, the challenge with that is, I mean, these aren't, you're going to start working our way into the discussion about pursuit policy and does the risk outweigh chasing these people in a marked black and white if they run, so it's going to take resources. We'll take an investigative angle to ID them after the fact and ultimately show up at their house, if it's that extreme with takeover and that sort of thing. But there are ways to address it, but it is a challenge, absolutely.
And if I could just add, council member, there's already a Torrance Municipal Code that addresses how many people, how many bicycle riders you can have abreast of each other. So there is a municipal code already that we can already enforce against e-bikes and regular bikes. The difference would be when we're getting into something that doesn't fall into the category of a bicycle.
Okay, so, and I know we have cameras around town. Are we legally able to use those cameras as an enforcement tool, or is it just for, in other words, if we do capture both, the act and the face of these individuals, can we go to the schools and say, look, these individuals were doing this, this, and that on this such day? Can we enforce proactively using technology?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and we're doing it currently. I mean, we're working backwards, identifying these kids when it's extreme.
Okay.
Not so much the school, but we'll show up at their house and.
Yeah, I mean, usually if they're locally and they're within the age school age, they're usually going to one of our schools. It seems like.
True.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I thought I saw you clicked in, Councilman Shake, but it disappeared, but you have some.
It still shows on my end.
Oh, I don't see anything here. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Lieutenant Fisher, for your detailed presentation.
Of course.
Great statistics. And I think our community members did it very well, explaining what kind of items should we proceed with. We should go all in. And the injuries, the nature of the injuries that you described here is really extreme. So whatever we can do, I would certainly support that. Like one of the community members mentioned, to have helmet, like you said, it's already in place. To have a driving test, we should also incorporate those kind of things. And additionally, partnership with TUSD, incorporate that as well. And have some kind of parental consent also if there's under a certain age limit. So we should consider all those things when we draft an ordinance. We should definitely go all in and make sure that no one gets injured, whatever we can do, prevent and use the technology as much as we can. This is new era, so definitely whatever way we can do to prevent those injuries, I would support that. Thank you.
Just because I did not see Councilman Shake's click in, did anybody click in? And I just don't see it. I just want to check. Okay, because if you want to speak, give me the eye. Yeah, actually, I'm looking at your proposed ordinance elements. I think as I think through this, I see the challenge because e-bike is a bike. The first three bullets, I think it sounds good. the fourth bullet on additional sidewalk or location enforcement, I think that might be a little trickier, but I know you guys use discretion, you know, parents teaching their kids, you know, 6-year-old kid how to ride a bicycle, and they may be pushing them behind on a sidewalk. But it seems like to me is, you know, my preference is giving you guys the freedom because you guys know what happens out there. I like, you know, it's more of the when you're reckless.
Right.
Because you could be reckless not on an e-bike. You know, people could be reckless, and those they could cause damage as well. They're just probably not going as fast, but some of these kids could ride bikes pretty fast too. So thank you for bringing it up. Thank you for the data. And I see a motion. So Councilwoman Lewis.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to make a motion to have the police department begin drafting an ordinance in conjunction with the educational partnership and strategy with TUSD for all 3 classes of e-bikes, class 1s, 2s, and 3s, and report back to the council with an initial draft.
I second.
Start voting, please. Your Honor, that motion carried with Councilmember Kalani absent.
Okay, thank you. We are going to pull item 10F forward about the Rose Float design. Let me make sure I find my spot now.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. Monica Hart with Community Services. 10F is a recommendation of the Community Services Director that the City Council approve the conceptual float design as the city's float entry in the Pasadena Tournament of Roses Parade on January 1, 2026, and provide direction on fiscal year 2025-26 funding allocation to the Torrance Rose Float Association for construction of the city's float. In 2025, the longtime float builder used by the Torrance Rose Float Association, or TRFA, Fiesta Floats, closed for business, and with assistance from the Tournament of Roses Association, the TRFA chose Artistic Entertainment Services, or AES, to build the 2025 Rose Float. The float won the Princess Award. However, there were logistical issues during the Torrance Officials Night warehouse visit, including the viewing location, viewing time allotment, bus parking and drop-off, and the ADA accessibility for our Officials Night guests. Additionally, the float had to be towed during the parade following a mechanical issue. Craig Bugoski, CEO and president of AES, has provided TRFA an informal quote of $150,000 to build the 2026 Torrance float. In addition to the AES quote for the 2026 float design, Michael Aboud, a longtime float designer with the former Fiesta Floats, formed a new company, Fiesta Productions, and has provided TRFA a quote of $235,000 to build the 2026 Torrance float. It should be noted that the TRFA indicated to staff their preference to proceed with Fiesta Productions for the 2026 float. Fiesta Productions' Michael Aboud was invited to the TRFA to attend the student design competition selection meeting for the conceptual float design. TRFA did not extend an invitation to AES. During the 2025-26 academic year, TRFA opened their annual conceptual float design competition to Torrance public and private high schools to create a conceptual design for the float. The theme for the 2026 Rose Parade is Magic, the Magic in Teamwork, celebrating accomplishments that are achieved by working together. The objective of the conceptual float design contest are to broaden awareness and interest in the City of Torrance Rose Parade float, and to engage youth in the parade and our city's float. This is the 8th time TRFA has held a design contest for Torrance High School students to create a conceptual design for the float, and it has been very successful. TRFA received 15 float design submissions relating to the 2026 parade theme. In February 2025, the board and a representative of Fiesta Productions reviewed the submissions and unanimously selected a proposal from Elizabeth Lay of West High, and that's our attachment 1. And I don't know if that's up. Yes, that's the attachment 1. Fiesta Productions provided a professional float design interpretation of the student design at the request of TRFA, and that's attachment 2. And this is actually the supplement following the publication of the agenda item. Staff was informed that TRFA revised the proposed name as the original title, Together We Thrive, is a phrase used by Kaiser Permanente and will probably appear on their float. And to avoid potential trademark issues, the float has been renamed to Together in Harmony. On March 26, 2025, the Citizen Development and Enrichment Committee of the City Council voted unanimously to increase the proposed fiscal year 2026 city allocation for the Torrance Rose Parade float by $50,000 for a total allocation of $175,000. It should be noted that the cost of the Fiesta production float is quoted at $235,000. The TRFA has traditionally raised $25,000 to support the float construction, with the city's funding of $125,000 providing the balance. The additional TRFA fundraising required would be $35,000. Based on the projected shortfall, staff has initiated additional fundraising efforts, including a GoFundMe campaign, potential text-to-donate services, and engaging with the Chamber of Commerce to coordinate support from the Torrance business community. Staff requests that your honorable body approve the student-originated float design and provide direction regarding the city's funding allocation to support the 2026 Rose Parade float. To note, the allocation of an additional $15,000 is reflected in the proposed fiscal year 25-26 operating budget that was presented to the City Council earlier, will be presented to the City Council after this. If the City Council provides direction to allocate an additional $50,000, no further changes are required on the proposed budget that you will vote on. I'm available for questions, and of course, I would like to make note that members of the Rose Float Association are here and also willing, and I think they would like to answer any questions you have as well.
Thank you very much. We'll go to the public for comments first. Anyone from the public who wishes to comment on this item? You have 1 minute. Come to the microphone.
Hello. I am Roseanne Villalobos, the current president of the Torrance Rose Float Association, and I'd like to just explain a little bit why we're did not want to go with AES at the 150, and that was several reasons. That though he promised he could do a lot, he did not come through with us, and that does not include the artistic drawing, so that would have to be paid too. Mike Abood, who is with the Fiesta Productions now, that does include his artistic, the drawing. He takes what the student does and embellishes it and makes it, something grand for the parade, something, to go down. We usually strive to win the Princess Award. The Princess Award is the same equivalent of the Sweepstakes Award because...
Yeah, I got it. Yeah. Your time is up. We'll just go with the next person. Thank you. I think you're pausing. Yeah.
She's one of the Rose Float Association members and wanted an opportunity to speak and didn't realize that you were inviting the rest of the public to speak.
Oh, she was part of your briefing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, it didn't look like it. It was since she's back there when I asked for public comments.
Right, exactly.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't understand. We are the public.
If that's the case, then your 1 minute is up. I mean, you're either part of public comment or you're part of the briefing. That's what I'm trying to say. I think Monica was trying to help. She was saying you're part of the briefing, but
Right. So should I be speaking up there or down?
Come on up then. Yeah.
Up there?
You see the difference, right? Yeah, yeah, you're part of the briefing.
I do. Sorry about that. As I was saying, we selected to go with Fiesta Productions simply because Mike has worked with Fiesta floats for many years, and we would be at the same location. And he also he is providing a chassis for us, so we don't have to buy a new chassis as we would with AES, and that would save additional money. Though the enrichment committee did discuss 175,000, that is still quite a bit shortfall. Fiesta Floats went out of business for bankruptcy. He was very generous to Torrance. He never rose our rate from 150,000 for many years, and by doing that, he not just Torrance but to other clients, he went bankrupt. So the cost of the float, if you are a brand new float and you want to go into the parade, it's a minimum of 300,000. We are able to go at a lower rate because we're grandfathered in. This year will be our 70th float and we are doing a fundraiser 70 for 70 years. The city of Torrance, I think you all received a letter from Lynn with the history of Torrance has been in the parade from the very beginning, with us, Jared Sidney Torrance being part of the Valley Hunt Club. So when Fiesta went bankrupt last year, the tournament called the Torrance Rose Float Association and said, hey, we still want you in there. Torrance is important to us, and we will help supplement the difference between what you can pay. And if you want to work with one of our, with the AES or the Phoenix, we'll help make up the difference that year, because they really enjoy having Torrance in there as one of the originals, which they did. And so again, we're looking to be in the parade again one more year to represent Torrance. I think you've got a handout before with the statistics of total viewership of the parade is over 28 million, and household viewership is 19 million. And the parade was watched by was participated with 800,000 people. Yeah, 800,000, and the Rose Bowl game only had 92,000. So the parade is really, what shows off, and you can't get any better advertising for the city of Torrance except for this. Is a worldwide, is on New Year's Day, is presented to everywhere. So back to, we'd like to ask for a little bit more than the 75,000. We have additional payments of $2,000 for our insurance. We have an entry fee of $7,500. We feed our workers daily, and that's a cost of about $1,500 for the week. Also, the school buses, we have to provide transportation for everyone to get up to Fiesta Floats, and that's about $1,000 a day that we pay for the buses. And then we have a storage unit that we house everything up there, and so that's about another $17,000 that we have to raise. So with the supplemental here, it shows it would be a total of 33,000 plus the 17,000, which would bring us almost at 60,000. And we are getting a lot of help, and we're going to try our best to do the fundraising, but we just would like to ask the city for a little bit more. Is there any questions?
Well, I'm just waiting for the briefing to end, because I'm going to.
I don't know.
I'm going to go to the public comments. Okay. Oh, is the briefing done? Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay. Anyone from the public who wishes to make comment, you get 1 minute. Okay.
The city of Torrance is blessed with people who want to advertise the city. And this is one of the best ways to do it. And we've been doing it for, what are you here, 70 years. I was blessed by being on the float in 2012. There I was in the trolley, inside the trolley, hearing everyone on Colorado Boulevard going, Torrance, Torrance! You know, it just felt so good because I was part of the city, advertising for the city and celebrating the parade. That is one of the best advertisements. And for those of you who are going to the Asian countries, they're seeing this. Those who are going to the European countries, they're seeing it. And everyone on the East Coast are watching this, and they want to come here. And when they hear about Torrance, they know about us.
We really need to keep this going because, as Carol said, this is a great way to advertise the city of Torrance. Jared Sidney Torrance recognized that when he put the first float in the parade when he was developing the city. That's how he started letting people know about Torrance. And this is how we keep Torrance in everybody's mind, why businesses want to move here and all that. So we need to do that. The other thing is, when I became president, I started the design contest for the high schools to demonstrate what great kids we had in this city and how great our schools were. So this also helps advertise our city in that respect. And so I think it's important that we keep this going and anything we can do to help keep it alive. Thank you.
Good evening. I think it's still evening. It's not quite morning yet. I hope that you all got the email that I sent in and the history attachment, and I hope you took the time to read it. It took me a while. So you have the history. We put in addition to everything else, you have an entire group of people who volunteer to do this. TRFA puts in over 3,000 hours a year. If you want to translate that into dollars, that's quite a bit that is donated. And we have people working full-time and still doing this. I know it sounds like we're asking for a lot, but the fundraising is a real tough job, and we just don't want to let everybody down. Thank you.
Association board. I have a little bit of a different approach for you. I always think about money, right? Dollars, cents, budget, understand. $50,000 is a lot to be adding to the pockets. What I'm hoping is maybe we could talk about quality of life. In the city of Torrance, this has a tradition. It's a family tradition. Kids look for it. Our residents look for it. Yes, the world looks for it, and it's good marketing, but it's for our residents. It's for us. It's for our families. It's for our children who can see things and enjoy things we did as we were growing up. So maybe there's additional money in SST to add to the pocket. Quality of life.
Hi. Last year, I did not watch the show, but I heard they win the prize, I don't know what category, because they were judging the float before it started. But Torrance float was an embarrassment because it did not go. The Torrance float had to be towed. And everybody in Asia, in Europe, and everywhere, they saw it. Torrance, the great city, has a broken down float. It had to be towed. had to be told. What is that tells you? The whole world saw you incompetent. Incompetent. You almost ruined the whole thing.
I know 300,000 sounds like a lot of money, but what you got to do is you got to look at the corporations and the people that make up the city of Torrance. Look at the businesses. Look at all those businesses that benefit from the Rose Float. 70 years, all volunteers, people working late hours. They put the float together, and you take 300,000 divided by 150,000 people that make up the city of Torrance, it's pocket change. And the benefits that you get by contributing to this float are millions of dollars that come back to the city coffers through businesses, through new employees, through new things that happen here by people wanting to be a part of the city of Torrance. So think about 70 years of the legacy of what's happened here in the city of Torrance. Thank you.
Okay, I think public comments are all made. I'll come to the council. Any comments or questions? I don't see anyone clicked in. Okay, Councilman Shake.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank the Torrance Rose Float Association volunteers. You do a great job. You represent us. You have done amazing job reaching out, collecting funds, raising awareness. So many hours representing the city of Torrance. You have done wonderful job, and I know you're asking more money, and hopefully you find other resources as well, but I think for me it's worth it. Thank you. I support it.
I don't see any more comments. I think Councilman Matucci is ready to take action.
I am, Mayor. I'm ready to take action. Before I make my motion, I want to remind everyone that the reason my family moved to Torrance is because my dad saw the Rose Float of Torrance going by on Colorado back in the 70s. And he said, let me look it up on the map, and that's how we ended up in Torrance. So some people might be happy about that. Some people might be not so happy about that. But needless to say, I also served on the board back in 2015. Therefore, as much as, I don't like to just, throw taxpayers' money away, but this is a great investment into holding on to a beautiful tradition, and hopefully it'll be around for another 70 years and plus. Therefore, I move that we increase our funding by $50,000 to $175,000 allocation, and hopefully they can find the rest. $175,000, I think it's a good amount that we pitch in.
Are you also approving the design?
And approving the design, correct. Thank you, Mayor.
And I second that motion.
Start voting, please. Your Honor, that motion carried with Councilmember Kalani absent.
Your Honor, Alamich Party City Manager, if I could ask that we take D and E out of order too.
Okay.
This way we can just leave the budget as the last item.
Okay.
And then we'll be here till tomorrow morning, but that's okay. Thank you.
Because we're going to be here till tomorrow morning anyway, right? Okay. Okay. Let's do that. Next item is 10D and then 10E.
Later.
Okay, item 10D from the Traffic Commission and Public Works Director. Is there a staff presentation?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Helen Shi with Public Works Department. Item 10D is administrative update to Torrance Municipal Code, Section 61.6.33, related to on-street parking restrictions along Maricopa Street, adjacent to the Belmar Townhome Complex. In 1996, the City Council approved ordinance number 3420, which prohibit parking along the north side of Maricopa Street between Crenshaw Boulevard and Hawaii Avenue. This restriction was implemented to address overflow parking from the Torrance Courthouse and several large commercial businesses on Maricopa Street that were active at the time. Since then, the area's use has evolved. Notably, in 2005, the Walks facility was replaced by the Belmar townhomes at the corner of Maricopa Street and Hawaii Avenue. Over time, residents in the neighboring Torrance Gardens neighborhood, south of Maricopa Street, began reporting parking overflow from Belmar, with residents and guests parking in the permit-restricted zones to the south. To help alleviate this issue and improve safety by reducing the need for Belmar residents and guests to cross Maricopa Street, residents of Torrance Gardens suggested allowing parking on Maricopa Street directly in front of Belmar. In November 2017, in response to this input, the city removed the no parking restrictions along the north side of Maricopa Street between Hawaii Avenue and Hickory Avenue. Since that time, staff observations have shown that added parking has worked well. It has provided necessary parking for Belmar residents and guests, eased the pressure on the Torrance Garden area, and improved pedestrian safety without causing any negative impacts. The Traffic Commission also previously reviewed and supported this change. Tonight, we're recommending a formal update to the Torrance Municipal Code to make it consistent with current conditions on the street. As always, the 72 hours parking rule and the street sweeping restrictions will remain in effect. Permit parking rules in the Torrance Gardens area will not be changed. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any members of the public who wish to make comment on this item?
Hello, great presentation. I don't know if I did not pay attention or I just couldn't understand it, and I took it off also. Modifying the parking situation. So I don't know if you're going to allow the parking where it wasn't parking before, or you're not going to allow the parking what was parking before. So the great presentation, it's either me, I did not listen enough, or blanked out, so I still don't know what you're voting for, getting rid of no parking signs or putting up more parking signs. So I don't know, but I don't have a college education, so I have about 60 minutes, and who cares? You know what I mean? Less parking, more parking restriction, it's more parking ticket for the people, more revenue to the city. Everything should be no parking.
Anyone else from the public wish to make comment on this item? I don't see any. Actually, Helen, you are somewhat new to the city, are you? Or was this the first time she's given the brief? Maybe it's the first time. Okay, thank you. I think just want to make sure to make clarification. It seems like before this item came here, that the city has already allowed that strip. We're just making it formal now. I think that's what I was hearing.
That's correct. The parking restrictions were removed in November 2017, and this item is to make the municipal code consistent with what's existing out there currently.
Okay, I guess I understood. Anyone else from the council has questions on this item? Councilman Kadri, are you ready to take action?
I move that we adopt the ordinance amending the Torrance Municipal Code and adopt the ordinance summary for publication.
I think I probably should have asked the city clerk.
Second.
Do I need a number and title?
Yes, Your Honor, this is ordinance number 3948, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Torrance, California, amending section 61.6.33 of the Torrance Municipal Code related to no stopping Maricopa Street.
Yes. Ordinance 3948. That would be part of the motion.
Start voting, please. Thank you. Your Honor, that motion carried with Councilmember Kalani absent.
Thank you. All right. Let's go to item 10E from the Public Works Director. Is there a staff presentation?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the Council. I'm Jessamine Q from Public Works. Item 10E has 3 recommendations related to the annual levy of assessments for the City of Torrance Lighting District 99-1 for fiscal year 25-26. Adopt a resolution initiating proceedings to levy assessments within the district. Adopt a resolution approving the engineer's report, and adopt a resolution of intention to levy assessments and set the date of June 3rd, 2025 for the public hearing. The lighting district was established in 1999 and pays for street lighting citywide. These resolutions are required annually for the city to continue to connect assessments from properties in Torrance to pay for street lighting. The proposed assessment amounts are the same as last year's and have remained the same since 2000. For example, most single-family residential properties would be assessed $20.50 in fiscal year 25-26, or $1.71 a month. As required by Proposition 218, the engineer's report separates special benefits allocable to real properties from general benefits to the public. Assessments paid by property owners would pay for special benefits of street lighting only. The total street lighting cost for the district in fiscal year 25-26 is estimated at $1,912,828. This represents a $46,556 increase from fiscal year 24-25, which corresponds to an increase in SCE rates. Assessment revenues are projected to be $1,388,480 in fiscal year 25-26. The balance of district costs would be funded by gas tax funds in the amount of $524,348 as identified in the proposed fiscal year 25-26 budget. This completes my presentation.
Thank you. I'll go to public comments on this. Please come to the microphone.
All right. Thank God you're raising this one too. I think last year it was like 1 point, I don't know how many million, but you manage it. You're gonna vote for this, I'm sure, because we need more lighting. And I'm sure, people don't even realize this when they pay their taxes, I used to pay, I remember when I bought my house, it was like $8 for street lighting every 2 months or something for Southern California, Edison. But you took over, you made this stupid lighting district. And by the way, at the South High overpass, the lights are out like 6 months. 6 months. So I want some money back. I want some money back and fix the lights. It's very important. Lighting is safety. You know what I mean? So you're charging people up the wazoo for shit people don't even know about, and then you don't.
Anyone else from the public who wish to speak on this item? I don't see any. Come to the council. Any council member has comments or question on this item, please click in. I don't see any. City Clerk, may I have number and title for this item, please?
Yes, Your Honor. The first is Resolution Number 2025-22, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Torrance, California, initiating proceedings for the levy and collection of assessments within the City of Torrance, Lighting District Number 99-1 for fiscal year 2025-2026 pursuant to the provisions of Part 2 of Division 15 of the Streets and Highways Code and as provided by Article 13D of the California Constitution. The next is Resolution Number 2025-23, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Torrance, California, approving the report of the engineer in connection with the levy and collection of assessments within the City of Torrance Lighting District Number 99-1 for fiscal year 2025-2026 pursuant to the provisions of Part 2 of Division 15 of the Streets and Highways Code and as provided by Article 13D of the California Constitution. And the last is Resolution Number 2025-26, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Torrance, California, declaring its intention to levy and collect assessments within the City of Torrance Lighting District Number 99-1 for fiscal year 2025-26 pursuant to the provisions of Part 2 of Division 15 of the Streets and Highways Code and as provided by Article 13D of the California Constitution, appointing a time and place for public hearing.
Councilwoman Lewis, you got all that?
I do. I make a motion to adopt the resolution.
I second. Oh, sorry. It's not me.
Whatever, either way.
It's only 11
All
p.m.
right, I'll second.
Start voting, please.
2 seconds.
Your Honor, that motion carried with Councilmember Kalani absent.
All right. Looks like we went to our O process, public hearing at the end.
Mayor, also for your awareness, in the interest of time, we will move the rest of the closed session items to the next meeting.
Okay,
So no need for
this is the
closed
last
session.
item for the evening.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So some of us will get to sleep tonight.
You have to stay anyway.
Okay, we're going back to 9A, I believe. 9A, from the city manager and finance director.
Good evening, Your Honor. Adam Chaparrian, City Manager. I'll kick us off. Honorable Mayor, council members, and Torrance community, it is my privilege to present the proposed fiscal year 2025-2027 operating budget and capital improvement plan, a comprehensive financial roadmap that balances fiscal responsibility with strategic investments in our community's future. This $586.5 million budget prioritizes core service delivery while making targeted investments in infrastructure, with $354.2 million allocated to the general fund and $85.5 million dedicated to capital improvements. Our approach deliberately utilizes accumulated resources for strategic investments that will enhance service delivery and reduce future maintenance costs, all while maintaining compliance with our fiscal policies. The budget reflects significant progress on our financial key performance indicators, with 5 indicators now in the green category compared to just to 1 that doesn't seem too far ago back in 2019-20. Key investments in the budget align with council priorities and include public safety enhancements, critical infrastructure maintenance, technological modernization, zero-emission fleet transition, homelessness response, employee recruitment and retention. The budget also reflects our community's evolving economic landscape, with property tax now surpassing sales tax as our largest revenue source. Major development projects continue throughout the city, and our downtown revitalization efforts are progressing with enhanced lighting, improved parklets, and new gateway signage. I wish to extend my sincere appreciation to our finance department and all city departments for their diligent work in developing this thoughtful and balanced budget. Their commitment to operational excellence, fiscal stewardship, and transparent financial planning have produced a document that not only received prestigious recognition from both the Government Finance Officers Association and the California Society of Municipal Finance Officers, but more importantly serves as a practical blueprint for continuing to make Torrance a premier place to live, work, play, and visit. Thank you for your leadership and continued partnership in building Torrance's future. I now transmit the budget for your deliberation and direction. Mr. Daly, our Finance Director, will now present the proposed two-year budget. Thank you, Your Honor and Council.
Thank you, City Manager Shaparian. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, Ian Daly, Finance Director. Tonight, I'll be presenting an overview of the fiscal year 2025-27 operating budget and capital improvement plan. The budget document itself was made available publicly on the Finance website on Monday, April 28th. In addition to publishing online, a copy of the budget was made available at the City Clerk public counter on April 30th. And these slides as well are also posted on the Finance Department and Council Agenda websites. Before we dive in, I'd like to take a moment and thank all departments for their joint effort in developing this year's budget document. The Finance team, including both those present tonight and those working behind the scenes, and City Manager Ram Shaparian and Assistant City Manager Danny Santana for their guidance and leadership. First, I'd like to set the stage with the first two slides intended to provide a quick synopsis of the state of the city's budget and things being closely monitored before we review the details. As noted, staff's overall outlook is cautious as we enter this budget cycle, which will be expanded upon throughout this presentation. Overall, the recommended budget provides a path of structural balance over the 10-year projection timeline. The General Fund's Economic Anomaly Reserve, as recommended in the proposed budget, is in compliance with the city's fiscal policy and is projected to grow over the 10-year projection period. And 2 of the 10 financial key performance indicators have been downgraded from the green category to the yellow category. The categories are revenue trends for the General Fund and the citywide capital asset condition KPIs. With these 2 downgrades, staff are recommending a conservative revenue budget while making strategic investments in critical infrastructure to address both these KPIs in a balanced manner. In the broader economy, part of staff's cautious sentiment relates to recent tariff activity at the federal level, its immediate impact on financial markets, and the potential long-term effect it can have on underlying economic activity. As of today, the S&P 500 is down 4.2% and the Dow Jones is effectively flat year to date. These types of market volatilities have a direct impact on the city's pension plan, which relies on an expected 6.8% growth each fiscal year. There have been a number of articles noting layoffs and even bankruptcies in the private sector due to overall economic headwinds. Retailers like Joann's and Forever 21 are closing their doors, with VinFast doing the same at the Del Amo Mall, while Torrance-based Canoe is filed for bankruptcy. With that said, business vacancies continue to be filled and community development processed $222 million in permit valuations in 2024, up from $157 million the year prior. It's also worth noting locally, as shown in the news and on social media, other neighboring cities are having budget challenges, shoring up deficits with their own budgets. Before we jump into the coming budget year, we'll first address the current fiscal year. So as noted on this slide, as of fiscal year 24-25 mid-year budget review report, the General Fund Operating Fund is projected to operate at an operating surplus where actual revenues will exceed actual expenditures. Included on this slide are staff's recommendations with how that anticipated surplus should be leveraged. The first is to make sure that the amortized balance in the city's IT asset replacement and fleet services funds maintain a sufficient balance for future asset replacement as calculated at fiscal year end. This will ensure the progress made in these areas is protected and sufficient funding is maintained. The second is to make sure the self-insurance fund balance improves in the current fiscal year and does not further degrade, another long-standing area of focus for us as a city. And the last is to allow any remaining portion flow to the unassigned fund balance to help offset capital contributions for the coming fiscal year. Another update related to the current fiscal year pertains to the general fund's presentation of fund balance. As a result of the fiscal audit the city underwent, there was a recommendation to improve oversight and control over the city's reserves. As such, staff is recommending that beginning in fiscal year 2024-2025, the Economic Anomaly Reserve Fund, commonly referred to as reserves, be represented under the city's assigned fund balance, with explicit council approval required for any portion of its use. As such, staff recommends a contribution of $56 million, which would set the full balance at $68.9 million, which is equivalent to a 22% reserve ratio based on fiscal year 2025-2026's proposed budget tonight. On this slide, we're providing a side-by-side comparison to bring visual clarity to what we just described with the side-by-side comparison of the current and proposed change and how the fund balance is presented. The fund balance for the general fund is broken into four main categories: non-spendable, restricted, assigned, and unassigned, which are shown here in bold rows. Below those bold areas, additional details are included to show the main buckets that make up the total figure, consistent with the city's audited financial statements. The recommended change described previously is taking place within the blue box on this slide. Currently, the Economic Anomaly Reserve Fund is a subset of the unassigned fund balance, with a balance currently totaling $12.9 million, but doesn't get explicitly presented because it's not part of the assigned bucket, which does get broken down in the city's audited financial statements. Implementing this change as part of the end of fiscal year 2024-2025 will allow the city to address an open item from the recently completed fiscal audit, ensure the city explicitly calls out its reserve balance, improves monitoring against the city's fiscal policy, and requires explicit council approval to utilize any portion of it. The fiscal policy in the proposed budget document calls out a policy minimum of 20% for the Economic Anomaly Reserve, and it also adds new language requiring the unrestricted balance, which is the sum of assigned and unassigned, also be at a minimum, striving to meet a 30% figure over time. Now we'll transition to the current year's budget cycle. This slide highlights the city's typical budget development timeline and major milestones along the way. The city's budget process is very time-intensive on staff, involving all departments, and generally lasts about 6 months. Tonight marks the first public hearing on the budget document, and this year staff are recommending a second public hearing take place May 20th, with a third and final public hearing taking place on June 3rd, the same night where council would approve the necessary resolutions to implement the 25-26 budget. As staff work through the budget development steps, there are key items that shape the direction of the budget as it is assembled. The first is the Finance and Government Operations Committee, which conducts a first quarter and mid-year budget review report. These reports are particularly valuable at setting an accurate and realistic revenue budget, as the coming budget cycle is based on projections rather than the current year's budget, to make sure revenues are as accurate as possible. In addition to these meetings, there are 3 core guiding principles that set the financial framework for staff. These include the city's 10-year strategic plan, the council adopted budget priorities for the current fiscal year, and the city's 10 financial key performance indicators. Staff have ensured that the recommended financial plan before your honorable body prioritizes this framework. As mentioned, monitoring our 10 financial key performance indicators is essential to providing staff with objective outcomes relative to the city's benchmarks. The city has made significant progress since fiscal year 2020, where 7 of the 10 metrics were in the red category. As of fiscal year 2024, the most recently audited fiscal year, 5 of the metrics are in the green category, and most notably, the revenue trends and capital asset condition metrics just fell into the yellow category. Additionally, staff have made one update to the 10 KPIs, changing the third metric listed above on the slides from general fund reserves, which track the unassigned fund balance against the general fund's budget, to now be the general fund unrestricted fund balance, which will now track the total of assigned and unassigned as a percentage of the general fund's budget. This is now consistent with the former state auditor metric and is being done in tandem with the change in how the city's reserve fund is now tracked and presented in our financial statements to track all available resources that are available at council's direction. As a direct result of these outcomes, in fiscal year 23-24, staff are prioritizing conservative revenue estimates and investments through the city's capital improvement plan to address these areas, which will be discussed in greater detail as part of the presentation. The city continues to have 6 areas of focus, which have been monitored over the last few years. The city has made incremental progress addressing certain items that have been monitored, while others remain a focus for many years because of the scale and scope to resolve them. The city continues to make incremental progress on the self-insurance funds funded status, ending fiscal year 23-24 at just under 30%, which is up from 8% in FY20. This is why staff recommended this area be prioritized with year-end surplus previously discussed. With the cash balances by fund area focus, this monitors the city's general fund cash balance compared with the rest of the city. Since the city has met its fiscal policy requirement of 20% reserves and is in the green category for liquidity and general fund unrestricted fund balance, it is anticipated this area of focus can be considered complete and will be discussed further in the coming fiscal year. As for labor trends, the city continues to be challenged here with an elevated level of turnover being experienced. While progress has been made in this area, it will continue to be monitored closely. With respect to expiring labor agreements, staff recently received council approval in April for the last of the remaining miscellaneous labor groups. While the city's police safety groups are expiring at the end of this calendar year, this area of focus can be considered complete and will be discussed further during the coming fiscal year. The city continues to monitor and prioritize investment in city facilities and parks through both the operating and capital improvement plan budgets. In addition to the recently completing building index study, staff are recommending funding for a library operations assessment and a parks master plan to evaluate current library services and chart out the future of the city's parks, including capital investment required over the years. Finally, staff continue to monitor and manage the city's overall pension and OPEB liabilities. Most recently, the city negotiated to freeze the city's PARS pension plan, capping its liabilities so its funded status can be improved on a condensed timeline. This is an area of focus that will remain for years to come. Finally, the city monitors several economic indicators to help plan out the city's finances in a prudent and conservative manner. As we're all aware, the Fed began leveraging its monetary policy in March 2022 to try and temper the economy and cool inflation trends. This included raising the federal funds rate all the way up to the 5.25 to 5.5% range. Then beginning in September 2024, the Fed began to soften rates to the current 4.25 to 4.5% range. The Fed monitors the Personal Consumption Expenditure Index, targeting a 2% figure, though inflation has been persistent, and as of February, this rate stands at 2.5%. The Consumer Price Index peaked at 8.6% in June 2022, but thanks to the Fed's actions, this figure has tempered to 3% as of March, slightly elevated above long-term trends. The Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell has noted that tariffs would likely at least generate a temporary increase in inflation, however, that the Fed remains focused on long-term fiscal policy decisions. Real GDP continues to grow at a steady rate, with the latest quarter growing 2.5% compared with the same period the year prior. And in the labor market, we see unemployment creeping upwards, with California and the South Bay cities in the range of 5.2 to 5.9%, with Torrance faring better at 4.7%, slightly above national unemployment rates of 4.2%. Now we'll begin to map out the overall framework of this year's budget, taking into consideration the different factors, including the strategic plan, budget priorities, key performance indicators, areas of focus, and underlying economic factors. Listed on this slide are a series of budget efficiencies included in the proposed budget with the goal of aligning resources in the most efficient manner possible. The city is transitioning fleet services charges that were historically distributed in a manner based on each department's actual repair activity, charging for the time and materials, to a flat rate model going forward based on vehicle type and historical costs. This conversion will allow for the city to budget a precise amount that is needed to recover the cost of the city's fleet fund. For the first time, the city is including a vacancy rate assumption in the budget. This was an item recommended in the city's fiscal audit that was recently conducted to better align the budget with actual staffing costs. Across all funds in fiscal year 25-26, it's assumed that 50% of the cost of vacant positions will not be filled in the fiscal year, and therefore lowers the staffing budget accordingly. While this change addresses the fiscal audit and doesn't assume all positions will remain unfilled, it does restrict the flexibility for the city to react to unplanned activities during the fiscal year. Similar to the change to the fleet fund, this budget consolidates the costs associated with non-litigated claims to the self-insurance fund, which were previously distributed to various departments. This change reduces the potential for over-budgeting in different departments and consolidates the activity to one place, improving our budget allocation efficiency. Previously, the fleet, sanitation, sewer, and water funds each had an operations and a vehicle replacement fund, with money set aside from the operations fund to the vehicle replacement fund each year. This creates additional burden on staff to perform these entries, plus a reconciliation effort at year end. Going forward, all funding will remain in the operations fund, and staff will monitor the balance to ensure future replacements are fully funded. Finally, the proposed budget includes realignment of certain positions in police and transit to pool positions and resources to better serve departments. Included in this budget are 2 rebrands and reorganizations. The first relates to Communications Information Technology, which will now be known as Information Technology. The second relates to our cable division of the City Manager's Office being rebranded as Communications. In prior versions of the budget, Civil Service was also represented as a department, though it's truly a division of the City Manager's Office and will now be presented that way going forward. And finally, going forward, the city's reserve fund will be presented differently as part of the assigned fund balance as previously described. The proposed budget prioritizes addressing the downgraded KPIs through conservative revenue projections and strategic investments in priority areas through the capital improvement plan, making sure the budget achieves structural balance over the long term, and taking incremental steps to implement areas of the fiscal audit. Finally, to round out the overall budget framework, the city continues to experience high levels of development, with the Community Development Department processing, as mentioned earlier, $222 million in permit valuations in 2024, which is up from $157 million in 2023. The strong development continues to provide a stable revenue base through increased property taxes. Despite a challenging retail environment and closures like Forever 21 and Joann's, the Del Amo Mall continues to fill vacancies regularly, with openings like Doc Martens, Big Blue Swim School, and Moo Moo Hot Pot planned to open soon. More broadly, the city's economic development efforts have brought new businesses like Sony Honda Mobility's Afila U.S. headquarters to Torrance. Efforts continue to strengthen the city's international economic ties through expansion of the Friendship Cities program, which now totals 5 cities. Additionally, the city established a technology governance committee to provide policy direction and oversight of citywide IT initiatives. A primary focus of this group is tackling the city's use of artificial intelligence in city operations. The city is a member of the GovAI Coalition, which is a group of cities tackling these same issues, which provides staff with resources such as draft policies and contract language for us to leverage and implement. While that happens, initial use of tools are being explored. As a tangible example, the budget message included in the proposed budget before your honorable body tonight was actually run through AI to enhance the original drafting, with many of its recommendations being included. In August 2024, the city conducted a statistically valid survey to help understand how people like to consume information from the city. This has informed a major initiative underway to overhaul the city's website. Staff have completed the discovery phase and are currently in the design phase with an anticipated update to the Community Development and Enrichment Committee shortly. The website will drastically simplify and create a user-centric website that will also include integrations and enhancement with our Acelo platform to allow new business license applications to take place online. It's anticipated the first phase of the 3-phase project will be live by the end of the calendar year, which includes the city's main website. As part of this effort, AI-driven chatbots are being explored to further enhance the effort and leverage technology that is available. The city continues to make strides in the area of homelessness in the city. We talked about that at length tonight. The city's 3290 temporary housing village continues to be full, having successfully transitioned 41 individuals to permanent housing. The city's transit department celebrated 85 years of service with the launch of its Connect Torrance microtransit pilot program, expanding service access within designated zones. The department also placed an order for 24 new buses, with 4 of them being zero-emission buses. And finally, the department continues to enhance service out of the RTC and is improving service levels on lines 1 and 6 as well. The police department continues to work closely with the California Department of Justice on collaborative reform. The goal of this effort is aimed at fostering a safer and more equitable society for all. The department is dedicated to providing its officers with the necessary tools and resources to uphold the highest standards of professionalism, embracing the principles of 21st century policing. The city's budget breaks down into 5 main fund classification types listed on this slide. We have the general fund, enterprise funds, and internal service funds housing the bulk of city operations and are what will be highlighted in the coming slides, outlining the changes in revenue and expenditure budgets for these operations. First, I'd like to take a minute and break down the city's general fund and how the different budgets within it function. So within the general fund overall, the city breaks it down into 4 main components shown on this slide. The left side, denoted by the darker blue, includes the operating fund and the Measure SST funds. These 2 funds function like the city's checking accounts, funding day-to-day activity and operations of the city. With the right side, denoted in the lighter blue, including the restricted and assigned funds. And these 2 funds function like the city's savings account, where we set money aside for future use. For example, the city's pension pre-funding trust is housed under the restricted fund, and the reserve fund will now be presented under the assigned fund. On this slide, we have the major funds and their changes in revenue budgets listed. I won't go through every single one in the interest of time, but all of them are explained in detail in the budget book starting on page 73. The general fund operating fund is proposed to increase by $17.6 million, which represents 6.1%. The increase is mainly due to the operating transfers in from the pension trust fund totaling $7.3 million, from the Measure SST fund $1.3 million, and the airport fund for $1.1 million. Additional revenue is anticipated in the license fees and permits totaling $4.4 million, and an increase in investment earnings of $1.9 million. With respect to the general fund Measure SST fund, it's proposed to increase by $1 million, which represents 4%. This is a result of projecting the Measure SST budget based on current projections as the city better understands the behavior of our transaction and use tax and its ratio relative to the Bradley Burns 1% sales tax. The general fund restricted fund is proposed to decrease by $5.5 million due to decreased contributions to the city's pension pre-funding trust in the coming budget cycle. The airport fund is proposed to increase by $2.7 million, mainly due to increase in rent from ground leases, hangar storage, and landing fees. The transit fund is proposed to increase $3.3 million. This is mainly due to a one-time operating grant for the expansion of the lines 1 and 6 I mentioned earlier, as well as increased Prop A transfers to the fund. The water fund is proposed to increase $7 million, mainly due to approved rate increases coupled with projected growth in consumption. And finally, the fleet services fund is proposed to increase $1.9 million, ensuring all costs are recovered from the contributing funds and departments to cover the centralized budgeting of costs in the fleet fund that I previously described as one of our budget efficiencies. This slide shows a breakdown of the revenue operating budget by fund classification. As shown here, the general fund is the largest, totaling $343.1 million, followed by enterprise funds at $148.4 million, and internal service funds at $39.4 million. On the slide, we'll examining the largest fund of the general fund operating fund, one of the city's checking accounts, which shows staff's conservative approach to revenues. As shown here, the city's largest revenue classification, taxes, is projected to grow by just over $700,000 or 0.4%. License fees and permits continue to perform strong, with operating transfers in growing largely due to a $7.3 million transfer from the city's pension trust fund to mitigate growth in the city's CalPERS costs. As shown on this slide, we're diving in a layer further, and we can see the drivers of change within the taxes classification shown on the prior slide. As you can see, sales tax is projected to decrease $825,000 compared with the prior year's budget, or 1.3%, along with a decrease in UUT of $2.7 million, or 5.8%, due to reduced natural gas consumption at the refinery. These decreases are thankfully offset by strong growth in the city's property tax base of $4.2 million, or 6.1%. As you can see here in fiscal year 25-26 column, Property tax has eclipsed sales tax, sitting at 72 million compared to 61.7 million, providing a consistent and reliably growing tax revenue base. The largest driver of change for the city's property tax base pertains to the turnover of properties being bought and sold throughout the year, coupled with some of the recent developments completed and underway. Similar to the revenue slide we just reviewed, we have major funds and their changes in the expenditures budget listed here. And again, I won't go through every one of them in the interest of time, but all of them are explained starting on page 81 of the budget document. The general fund operating fund, though, is proposed to increase by 25.1 million as a result of combined increases in salaries and employee benefits, CalPERS, unfunded actuarial liability costs, and contributions to the city's capital improvement plan. The general fund measure SST fund is proposed to actually decrease by 1.3 million. This budget decrease is taking place after a planned use of fund balance in fiscal year 24-25, which allowed for additional contributions to be made to the city's capital improvement plan. The general fund restricted fund is proposed to increase by 7.2 million, which is the result of the city's use of its pension trust fund to smooth the growing costs related to CalPERS. The airport fund is proposed to increase by 5.9 million due to increased transfers to the general fund from land lease activity outside the fence and increased contributions to the city's capital improvement plan as well. The transit fund is proposed to increase by $4.8 million due to additional positions to support service expansions previously mentioned and other interdepartmental charges. The water fund is proposed to decrease by 8.1 million due to to increase by 8.1 million due to projected increases in anticipated water supply costs for the fund, which are being partially offset by reduced contributions to the city's capital improvement plan. And finally, the fleet fund is proposed to increase by 4.3 million due to the budget efficiency change previously described, centralizing the budget for repair and maintenance costs, coupled with increased depreciation charges expected from significant fleet replacement purchases that are underway. On this slide, we show a pie chart of the citywide expenditures highlighting the main fund classification budgets with, similar to the revenue, general fund being the largest at 354.2 million, followed by the enterprise funds at 158 million, and in third, the internal service funds at 37.4 million. Included on this slide is a presentation of full-time equivalent, or FTEs, positions citywide organized by fund, showing any changes. As you can see on this slide, there's a 4.95 FTE increase in the general fund and a 9.0 FTE increase in the transit fund. It's important to note that 3 FTE are actually not new positions, but a reallocation of those embedded positions I mentioned earlier, aligning them under their home departments, in this case, human resources and general services, which will earn the city indirect cost reimbursement from all internal service and enterprise funds. As such, after controlling for this activity, the general fund is actually recommended to increase by 1.95 FTE. On this slide, we're looking at the same FTE counts, but from the perspective of the departments, ignoring funds. While we have included slides to highlight the reorgs in the city manager's office and information technology, I want to take a moment to explain the other changes included on this slide. For community development, 3 additional positions are being proposed to address the increasing demand on the department and ensure business flows smoothly and development continues to be supported. This includes the addition of a permit technician, plans examiner, and a senior building inspector. For finance, this is a net 0 FTE change, but rather the cost representing the conversion of a senior accountant position to an accounting supervisor position to address recruitment challenges. For general services, this 1 FTE increase relates to an internal transfer of a custodian previously under the transit department, but now merged with all other custodian positions in general services. For human resources, this 2.0 FTE increase relates to an internal transfer of 2 HR positions previously under transit department, but now merged with other like positions in human resources. For police, the 5 FTE reduction relates to an internal transfer of 5 IT-related positions previously under the police department, but now merged with like positions in information technology. And for Public Works, the additional 1 FTE is a maintenance worker position, and the second position added to support the 7,000 trees being planted citywide. And finally, for transit, there are 12 additional bus operators being added to support service expansion, partially offset by the previously mentioned embedded position being transferred across departments. The full detail of all of these changes can be seen on page 84 of the budget document. In the city manager's office, staff are proposing a reorganization to update the city's cable division as part of its rebranding to communications. The goal of the reorg is to add, convert, and eliminate certain classifications to better align with the 21st century communications model, leveraging social media platforms through content creators to tell the story of the city and communicate with our residents and corporate citizens. As shown on this slide, a management associate position is being added, along with a series of conversions listed below, to establish new classifications or update existing ones. Finally, on this slide is a series of eliminations of FTE and classification titles as we migrate to this new model. In total, the proposed program modification reduces FTE counts by 2.05 and a savings of a little over $80,000. The Information Technology Department is also proposing a reorganization as the department evolves under Director Yermakov's leadership, advancing council-identified budget priority areas. As shown on this slide, an IT manager and project manager position are being proposed to support efforts related to GIS and the many projects both underway and on the horizon for the department. Of note, the city is embarking on identifying and implementing a new enterprise resource planning system, which will affect every single department and every single employee as we advance the effort forward. Staff are working to take incremental steps to ensure the success of this project, as all too often these efforts can take many years and go significantly over budget. So taking it seriously and prioritizing it on the front end should put us in the best place for success. In addition to these position adds are a series of conversions, including a merging of wireless and telecom together under one supervisor. On this slide, the department is proposing the elimination of a senior administrative assistant to offset the cost impacts, leveraging a small team of people to oversee technology agreements citywide. And finally, the 5 positions previously noted that are being transferred from the police department are listed here as well. On this slide, we're providing the major drivers of change for the non-wage budget of the general fund. In total, about $700,000 is being recommended, with the bulk of it relating to the following areas. In the city manager's office, $150,000 is being added so that staff can engage with an audit firm to review all land lease agreements, ensuring accountability with all revenues received. This will allow the city to institute a program that will evaluate different leases on a rotational basis. In community services, budget is being recommended to support the park services division in response to the park operations assessment, adding funding for tree trimming efforts along with supplies needed, including turf, seed, fertilizer, and topper for sports fields. Funding needed to hire outside consultants to support master planning and cost estimation services for the city's capital improvement plan, and funding to conduct a library operations assessment to evaluate our library model in the 21st century. In general services, budget is being recommended to support various building maintenance related costs needed citywide. The full detail of all of these changes are fully described on page 87 of the budget document as well. Next, we'll review the general fund's budget with respect to various subsidies. Most notably, the Armed Forces Day Parade budget was recently increased to address additional security measures. The fiscal year 25-26 budget carries this newly adjusted amount forward. Additionally, the Tournament of Rose float budget is noted to increase $50,000, which is consistent with the action just taken to support the anticipated change in subsidy that the council just approved. Finally, the City Yard open house takes place every other year, so it's not anticipated to be needed to be funded in FY26, but it resumes in FY27, and all other subsidies remain unchanged. Staff have assembled this slide in an effort to recalibrate travel budgets based on recent economic development and international relations efforts, as well as to formally establish budgets for council committees that require travel and to not have it come from council members' core travel accounts, which is intended to fund other conferences. While the cost basis listed on the slide quotes a number of trips and cost per trip, this is purely a method of establishing a dollar amount to budget and does not necessarily cap or guarantee a number of trips, as the dollar amount is really what will be the ceiling. For the federal and state legislative trips, a budget of $7,500 to cover the 3 members each year is included. For general economic development efforts, a budget of $17,500 per year is included to cover all council members taking 1 trip in any given fiscal year. Then in the middle section, we list the travel budgets for each council member and the mayor. Each council member currently set at $12,000 and the mayor at $16,000. In the third section, we note the budget for local meetings and meals, setting a budget at $21,000, which is equivalent to $250 per council member per month. And finally, in the bottom section, we note a $70,000 budget specific to any Friendship City travel-related activity. This was derived from a general assumption of each member being able to travel twice per year. In total, this represents about a $25,000 increase in the overall travel budget for council and redefines allocations in hopefully a more clear manner. All of these amounts are purely placeholders based on staff's evaluation of activities and can certainly be updated at council direction. Finally, council consider a change in practice that would allow for any member to transfer a portion or all of their individual travel budgets to any other council member without requiring full council consideration. Now we'll focus on the long-term horizon and how all of the changes I just described play out in our multi-year projections. On the next 2 slides, we'll focus on the General Fund Operating Fund and the General Fund Measure SST Fund, the General Fund's 2 checking accounts. But all of our fund projections can be reviewed starting on page 159 of the budget document. Starting in the top section, in fiscal year 25-26, the city is proposing to utilize $8.1 million accumulated in our checking account, that is the General Fund Operating Fund, balancing the budget through its use of fund balance to support a $13.1 million contribution shown in the green text in the section below. This investment in the city's capital improvement plan is intentionally included to actively address the downgrade in the city's capital asset condition key performance indicator. Additionally, it would typically be expected that the city will spend less in any budget cycle, achieving some savings through vacancies, which will mitigate this impact on a dollar-for-dollar basis. As shown in the middle of the funding details and assumptions section, the city continues to contribute to its pension pre-funding trust and has planned strategic use of this balance for a portion of the 10-year projection model consistent with last year's projection. This use will smooth the rising costs of pensions being experienced by the city as revenues grow with us, adding back to the balance on the tail end of the 10-year projection. Finally, as explained earlier, the city is changing its presentation of reserves and explicitly calling it out in the assigned section of the balance sheet. As you can see in the bottom section, the reserve fund is being recommended to be set at $68.9 million, which is 22% of the fiscal year 25-26 budget amount, and then is projected to grow during the 10-year projection, maintaining or exceeding the 20% policy requirement. For the first 4 years, the general fund continues to rely on Measure SST's contribution to reserves, but in years 5 through 10, the reliance wanes. Eventually, the $5 million stays in the reserve fund, growing the balance each year. As previously mentioned, in any given year, if there are any operating surpluses where actual revenues exceed actual expenditures, council can direct additional contributions to reserve fund to build it at an accelerated pace. Now we'll examine the general fund Measure SST fund, the second checking account, so to speak, pertaining to the general fund. As shown here, the budget is balanced for all 10 years, supporting city efforts by generating $26 million in fiscal year 25-26, growing to $34.1 million in 34-35. Without Measure SST, significant reductions in service and facilities would have been required to shore up the $26 million gap filled by this half-cent transaction and use tax approved by voters in June 2022. The majority of funding from Measure SST is committed to maintaining positions in police and fire in the amount of $13.1 million in fiscal year 25-26. The second largest area that Measure SST supports is the city's capital improvement plan, investing in parks and facilities accordingly. Then the Measure SST Fund commits a $5 million contribution to help protect and defend the city's reserve fund balance. Finally, the city continues to commit at least $1 million for cybersecurity and homelessness efforts each. However, thanks to staff efforts, outside funding has been secured to mitigate the need for SST funding in some instances. An important topic that will be given more focus during this year's budget presentation pertains to the city's capital improvement plan. As an entire city, we have more than $1 billion in assets, with them over 50% depreciated. In fiscal year 23-24, our capital asset condition indicator was downgraded to the watch category, the yellow category. In the last 4 years, construction costs have also escalated by more than 40%, placing additional strain on the amount of investment that can be made with the city's dollar not going as far as it once did. To mitigate impacts of these types of cost escalations, the city has included a 10% contingency line related to facilities and parks projects. In fiscal year 23-24, a building index study was completed highlighting a minimum investment required over the next 10 years of $205 million, when our financials can only sustain approximately $8 million. Expanded exploration and leveraging of grant opportunities and debt mechanisms will be critical areas for the city to explore. However, it's important to note that while the city has capacity to issue debt with its assets as collateral, the impact this has on the budget needs to be closely monitored. The issuance of debt creates a long-term fixed cost with very little ability for the city to augment. One of our financial key performance indicators follows this exact metric called debt burden to make sure the city isn't overly constrained by fixed costs. This KPI sets a goal of total open debt balances, excluding pension-related debt, being at or below 40% of citywide revenues. Currently, the city is at a 32% ratio as of June 2024, leaving an 8% gap, which is equivalent to about $37 million. However, the city's water fund just concluded its last drawdown on a low-interest state loan in the amount of $14 million related to the Van Ness water well and transmission project, leaving about $23 million in excess capacity for the city to still fall in the green category with this KPI. Absent a separate ballot initiated bond measure, capacity is limited. Finally, the capital improvement plan includes funding to allow the city to conduct its first comprehensive parks master plan effort. This will be a community engagement based report that inventories all of our parks, their condition, and where the community wants to see these in the future and associated costs with doing so. Many of these costs were included in the building index study, and this will provide many of these costs were not included in the building index study, and this will provide a broader view of the capital demands being placed on the organization with our current makeup of buildings, parks, and community spaces. The city's capital improvement plan, while comprehensive, is not all-inclusive, and there are known gaps without a clearly defined funding strategy in place. The main projects include the potential of an additional fire station in the southeast portion of the city, as well as the impacts of the city's Civic Center master plan effort. On top of these projects, staff continue to have to defer and push projects out due to the lack of funding available under the current service delivery model of the city, the rising costs to complete these efforts, and the deferred maintenance that is accumulated and will be explained further. During fiscal year 24-25, the capital projects team in general services and community services departments has been hard at work completing over 40 projects of varying complexities with another 40 projects in the pipeline. The projects underway include significant investments at City Hall in the Building and Safety Division, the overhaul of Paradise Park, Bocce Court rehabilitation, the construction of a World War II memorial, and an overhaul of Columbia Park via a 3-phase effort, and the construction of a parking structure at the Mary Kay Giordano Regional Transit Center. With recent funding availability, particularly due to Measure SST, the team has completed a number of efforts as things ramp up to larger scale projects noted on this slide. Multiple roof projects have been completed, Discovery Park and Russ Nolte were rehabilitated, along with multiple park lighting projects to address outages at multiple locations. Included in the next few slides, we have some visuals to highlight some of these completions. The first here is a photograph side by side of the before and after at Discovery Park. Another angle here of Discovery Park, side by side, pre and post the improvements that were made there. And finally, a third photo that shows the before and after at Discovery Park and that renovation. There was another project to add a sixth flagpole for the Space Force at the Veterans Memorial here out front of City Hall, completed by the General Services Department. We had a roof replacement at the Historical Museum, shown here before and after. A roof replacement that took place at El Nido Park, before and after. And while not a building or park project specifically, the city's effort to beautify through its signage and wayfinding projects highlighted here on this slide as well. While projects advance and efforts continue, we'll spend the next few slides better understanding the current state of our facilities from the Building Index study to expand on the status of our facilities, including their age and condition. The Building Index study assigned a score to each of our assets ranging from A, being a good, to D, being critical. As shown on this slide, the bulk of our assets fall in the middle, with poor the highest frequency at 56 assets. On this slide, we'll start to expand behind the numbers, looking at what types of assets are scoring poorly, their age, their cost to maintain, and their cost to replace. As you can see here, the average age of assets is 56 years old in the poor condition, with them being built on average in 1969. Each particular asset, whether it would be recommended for repair versus replacement, would be done on a case-by-case basis, evaluating site conditions and other factors. As shown here, 3 of our worst scoring libraries were built on average in 1961. All of our fire stations fell in the poor grading, with 7 public safety facilities scoring in the poor condition and an average year built of 1969. In total, 56 assets received a poor condition score, built on average in 1969, with a minimum of investment required totaling $90 million and the upper range at $500 million with respect to replacement costs. As just mentioned, the likely outcome would be a mixture of the two, but is intended to convey the scale and scope of investment required with our current portfolio of assets. On this slide, we expand upon the assets receiving a fair score in the Building Index study. On average, these buildings were built in 1974 and have a range of investment required between $86.4 million and $843.4 million, depending on whether a recommendation to repair versus replace is made. To summarize, the Building Index evaluated over 100 assets, which we previously described on the prior slides. In addition, the city has an inventory of 47 playgrounds across 29 of our 33 parks, with only 3 of them being fully accessible through rubberized surfacing, and others leveraging sand, engineered wood fiber chips, or a combination of rubber and the previously mentioned surfaces. With the 100 plus assets, sheer age is a significant component and driver of costs, with assets in the critical stage built on average in 1956, 1969 for poor, and 1974 for fair. While investments continue to be made and projects advance, it is anticipated that additional discussion will be needed as the sheer cost, scope, and magnitude of the city's capital commitments are defined and weighed against the city's ability to afford. On this slide, we highlight the overall capital improvement plan for all funds and all project types. The full details of the city's capital plan and every project recommended behind the summary figure can be seen starting on page 171 of the budget book. To date, shown in the life-to-date balance column, there's $94.4 million committed to various projects citywide, with another $85.5 recommended in fiscal year 25-26. In fiscal year 25-26, the public right-of-way category continues to see the largest investment with an additional $35.1 million recommended. This is followed by investments in our city parks and facilities totaling $14.8 and $9.7 million respectively. In total, over the 5-year period, and all funding sources, about $250 million is being recommended. Now we will expand on 2 project areas, specifically parks and facilities. For parks, as previously mentioned, there's a recommended budget of $14.8 million in FY26 with $30.3 million recommended over the 5-year plan. The full detail of all projects, their funding sources, and scope can be found starting on page 174 of the budget document. Of note, Columbia is being allocated additional funding for the 3-phase project that has commenced. There is $3.9 million being recommended for the current fiscal year to support the World War II Memorial Project, and an additional $750,000 to begin the design and master planning process for the rest of the park in FY 26-27. $5 million added in 27-28 to support phase 2, including a dog park, restrooms, playgrounds, and picnic areas. And then in FY 28-29, an additional $3.6 million to support the final phase of the project, including the soccer fields and walking path. The full detail of this project can be found on page 175. For Paradise Park, an additional $6.9 million is included to support subsequent efforts and construction of a full park rehabilitation. This includes new supporting infrastructure like utilities and irrigation, ADA compliance, playgrounds, picnic areas, and a bathroom. Staff anticipate returning to council for review and approval of concept designs at Paradise Park, similar to what was just completed with the World War II Memorial Project in the near future. Additional notable efforts include court resurfacing efforts at the following locations: Walteria Park, Torrance Park, Delthorne Park, Greenwood Park, Lago Seco, Victor, La Carretera, La Romeria, Paradise, Sunny Glen, and Wilson Parks. Now we'll examine the capital improvement plan relating to the city's facilities further. The full detail of all projects, their funding sources, and scopes can be found starting on page 180 of the budget document. The largest investment is recommended at Torrance Municipal Airport with $3.3 million to renovate airport hangars and complete a taxiway lighting replacement project. The subsequent fiscal years continue reinvestment in the hangars at the airport as well. The second largest investment relates to the city yard, with funding being allocated to replace the roof at the city yard services building, as well as beginning the first phase of implementing EV charging infrastructure to address the migration of EV technologies under current CARB requirements. Additional investments are planned in the out years at fire stations 1, 2, 4, and 5, along with Southeast Library as well. To bring it all back full circle, on the next few slides, I'd like to connect the various items discussed in the presentation and their correlation to council-approved budget priorities. For budget priority 1, as discussed at points in the presentation, the city has produced a structurally balanced budget that fully complies with the fiscal policies of the city council. For budget priority 2, the city continues to take steps to address its open areas of focus, addressing things like expiring labor agreements, and as noted earlier, is anticipated we'll be able to mark this one complete. For budget priority 3, the city has made progress improving its vacancy rate in recent years through various programs. The city regularly evaluates their success to ensure investment is aligned in areas that yield results. As such, beginning in fiscal year 25-26, the city is shutting down the long-standing first-year cost savings program due to lack of program success. However, the city continues to have success with the multi-million-dollar recruitment and retention incentive program for the police department, the enhanced referral program for difficult-to-fill positions, improved employee engagement efforts through things like the summer picnic, and spot awards. For budget priority 4, the city has included significant recommended investment in parks, buildings, and public right-of-way. This is to address the budget priority along with the downgrade experienced in the capital asset condition KPI. In total, the capital improvement plan includes $59.7 million in fiscal year 25-26 with $162.2 million over the 5 years. However, as explained earlier, the needed investment in facilities alone ranges between $205 million and $1.4 billion in the coming 10 years. For budget priority 5, the city continues to lean into its economic development efforts, attracting businesses such as Sony Honda Mobility's Afila and Terry's and Northwood Space. While the economy is challenged and businesses like Joann's and Forever 21 shut down at the mall, turnover continues with businesses replacing these locations. The city continues to be sought after with many developments underway and community development processing record level permit applications. For budget priority 6, staff are implementing multiple budget efficiency measures in response to the fiscal audit to improve allocation of resources citywide, including items like a vacancy rate assumption, realigning embedded positions, and consolidating budgets to eliminate over-budgeting redundancies. For budget priority 7, continued investment is recommended in IT through the proposed staffing reorganization and various projects funded through the capital improvement plan. For budget priority 8, the city continues to make progress in building out infrastructure at the city yard to support transit and the rest of the city's fleet, leveraging the Charge Ready program through SCE. Additional funding has been slotted in the capital improvement plan, funding to address the charges themselves. For budget priority 9, additional funding has been recommended and included in the budget document in direct response to the Park Services Operations Assessment. As the new Park Services Manager comes online, it's anticipated additional projects will be identified, such as irrigation controllers that monitor the weather and can save the city recurring costs each and every year. And for budget priority 10, staff have recommended multiple changes in the city's practices in direct response to the fiscal audit that have been covered tonight, and will continue to address the findings to ensure that Torrance progresses and matures its financial management practices. As for next steps, tonight I walked us through the summary of the city's proposed budget document. Hopefully Mayor, Council, and the public have found the presentation valuable and helpful at condensing a 240-plus page document into a little over 50 slides. Tonight marks the first public hearing to gather feedback from your honorable body and the public. The next step is a public hearing on May 20th, which would add a third opportunity for Mayor, Council, and the public to provide feedback, which is another item noted in the fiscal audit. And finally, staff would return on June 3rd for the third and final hearing, seeking approval from Council on the priority framework for our anticipated year-end surplus, the reserve contribution, and approval of the appropriations resolutions themselves. That concludes staff's presentation, and myself, along with my fellow department heads, are available for any questions. Thank you.
All right. Did we get all that? Thank you, Mr. Daly. We'll now take public comment on this matter. Each speaker will have up to 2 minutes to speak. Anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this item, please come to the microphone.
Hello, everyone. I hope you Goober and Matucci listened and understood what Mr. Daly was talking about. Our city is a poor condition. Our city is a poor condition, except the wages and salaries of our high-ranking officials, including police, fire, and management. The city is in big trouble, and you, except that guy, led us to this point. You are responsible, these poor conditions. This is a shame. And then you tell people you are delusional idiots. You argue with me, but in the paperwork, you don't listen to this. We're hitting the crap. The one good thing happened, Mrs. Poussin is still here with a new job, new salary, and not in the presentation. What's her new position and how much she make? And the other thing, even your $50,000 improvement for the Torrance float bowl, what you got already on the presentation, what happened in 5 minutes before. How did you print that? How come already the $50,000 was in the presentation? You already knew it before the meeting, before you voted. They already know they got $50,000. Look around and smell your asshole, because the city is stinking, going down here.
time is up, sir. I think she. Anyone else who wishes to speak? Sir, you're interrupting the meeting. I think she's about to get up. You're disrupting the meeting still, sir. You're expelled, sir.
Thank you, my honor. I just want to say thank you for letting me sit in and to be part of this council. I really appreciate. Even though I slept most of the times, I was very attentive. Thank you and God bless you. City of Torrance is a beautiful city. I like it. It's clean and there's some good people. I've met a lot of kind people who just come and say, Sade, take. Sade, I don't know them because they stole my suitcases, my shoes, my clothes, everything. Because I've been on the road, I sleep on the streets. But it's all good, but it's all for a reason. It's called destiny. When destiny has called you and God chooses you for something, it's very tough. But you can't say no to God. But I chose it. I'm like, okay, he said, go, I'm going to use you. So thank you and God bless you. I'm very grateful. And one more thing, I'm going to see Donald Trump. Thank you.
Okay. I think that's all from the public. So, any questions from the council members of the council? Please click in. I think Councilman Kaji, you're the first one.
Thank you, Director Daley, for your presentation. I think this should be a Netflix series. And I think we're starting out with by you giving a very reasonable, conservative approach to the budget. I very much appreciate some of the observations made in the forensic audit that are baked into this report. And I'm glad that these have set up some bumpers for us going forward as a city. Some of the observations that I took away, not just from your presentation, but from my evening readings at home, it's interesting to see how the revenue has shifted from sales tax to property tax. I think that shift is a good one because, as we know, sales tax goes up and down depending upon consumer confidence or lack of. And I think if there's ways that we can continue to grow our property tax base, we should consider that. I know, and we'll be meeting tomorrow to talk further, but looking at some of the actions taken by the council to improve our revenue picture, including digital signs, community facilities districts, and also taking a different look at the city's real estate portfolio and our leasehold interests and how we can improve in increasing revenues from a very significant asset. I think we do have the makings of moving from cautious back to good, but I think the approach in being cautious is a good one, and I think that establishes a good base for all of us to work from. I did have a question about the city's real estate holdings and the $1 billion. How did you come up with that number? Is it from property tax assessments or market valuations?
Mayor and council, that figure comes from our audited financial statements where we record all assets, buildings, road, infrastructure, sewer, water utilities, everything is included in that figure. So it comes from our audited financial statements.
Is that on a cost basis?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Other than that, I really like this report. The clarity in this report is wonderful, and I think your predecessor kind of helped us move in that direction. So I like what I see, at least for myself, at midnight. Uh, it's very clear, and it's easy to understand. But I think it provides us all here in the city and also with the residents with a good roadmap to follow. And I would encourage you and your staff. Thank you, first of all, for putting this together, all the departments as well, because it takes a lot to go into a budget, but also for a city manager and staff. I'm very much impressed by this work. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Matucci.
Thank you, Mayor, and good morning, everyone. I just want to, for the record, on page 31 of the presentation, it shows the $50,000 increase for the Torrance Rose Float, and I believe that is because that was based on the recommendation of the committee, and this is not a done deal. It has to be voted on. So these are just recommendations by staff based on the. So I just want to make that clear that it wasn't like a backroom deal. Hey, let's give him 50 grand.
Mayor, Council, Ian Daly, Finance Director. I was present at the meeting, heard the number, I heard the recommendation coming forward, and thought it prudent to include it in the planning effort and see how it kind of unfolded from there. Always easier to take out than add into the budget. So
Correct. And basically that's how it works with committees. They come up with a recommendation, then it comes here. So that's why we're here. So I appreciate people's comments. I just want the facts to be straight. I do love the fact that it's very comprehensive, easy to read, and just appreciate all the work that's been put into this. Thank you.
Any other questions from the council? Councilman Sheikh.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Daly, for the detail, and thank you for a lot of additional work to help us understand this. On page 6 of the presentation, I just wanted to understand we're shifting from unassigned to assigned. I'm not clear what's the methodology behind this. Your projection from 24-25 to new projection, you're shifting some of the funds. Can you expand on that, please?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, Ian Daly, Finance Director. This is purely a side-by-side comparison to visually demonstrate what we were describing before, which was changing how we present the city's Economic Anomaly Reserve Fund, which, as mentioned before, was part of and just included as a component of unassigned. Unassigned is not broken down in our audited financial statements and no details provided there. So the city's fiscal audit recommended changing that practice and providing more clarity. And to do that, it's representing it under the assigned category, which then gets listed out underneath it in our audited financial statements. It better protects the reserve fund. It's clear what the balance is, and requires explicit council approval to utilize any portion thereof.
So you putting clearly how much reserve are you putting, basically, for the transparency? That's your main objective, right? And I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's exactly correct. We're providing full transparency and clarity on what the reserve balance is. It's explicitly stated to an exact dollar figure and can be easily seen in audited financial statements. So it's purely a shift in which row the number is contained to improve that clarity and accountability.
And anytime we want to tap into the reserve, we're going to come to the council?
That's exactly correct.
Okay. I like this. I think this is from the audit that we conducted recently, and I think that's a good approach to go with that. Another thing on page 12, you mentioned earlier that the funding will be an operational fund for fleet vehicles. did I hear that correctly? So you're changing if the fleet funding will be in operational fund?
Mayor, Council, Ian Daly, Finance Director. So if we were looking at the city's audited financial statements, and we'll pick on the fleet fund specifically as an example, it's shown as one fund, but internally staff previously had two separate funds set up. One dealt with more of the operations, paying for the staff, charging the departments to recoup for those costs, while the other fund, money was moved from the operations fund to the fleet fund to set those dollars aside for future vehicle replacements. So rather than have that additional work to separate that out, we're just eliminating that additional fund detail and just will be tracking it as part of the overall balance of the one fund that would remain.
So are you saying we're still going to replenish with whatever is needed, but instead of putting multiple buckets, you're keeping in one bucket, so it's easy to manage the replenishment, how much you would need to, and stuff like that?
That's exactly right. It's purely an efficiency step. All the same monitoring and reconciliations will take place to ensure that, for example, the fleet fund has a sufficient balance to replace all vehicles and their amortized expectation of future vehicle costs. So all those same practices still exist, just reducing administrative burden, frankly.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is the one I always get confused when we get from our public works department that we replenishing the funds, and I think with this, hopefully that'll be more clear how much we have and how much we need for future spending. Let me see here. I am struggling to, I know that our labor, you showed a slide. Let me see if I can find that labor. Personnel, 24. Slide number 24. Expand that. We're saying that from, are you on page 24? Yes. So fiscal year 22-23, actual we spend 1.5 million, 1.5, and that remains kind of flat. That's
If
your
I might
projection.
jump in there, this represents full-time equivalent positions. So there's 1,529.99 positions that existed in that year.
So we're keeping our full-time employment positions almost flat.
That's correct. We've had some nominal adjustments over the years in an effort to address various priorities that have come up. Yes.
So here is my struggles. I was going ahead. So if we look at the amount that our budget for labor has gone quite a bit up. We have gone up in our labor spending, but our positions remain flat.
So a main driver of that would be the multi-year labor agreements that were recently approved across public safety and the miscellaneous groups. And so while position counts aren't necessarily changing by any significant amount, investments in each of the positions and what we pay our employees would be a driver of cost there. Additionally, we're in a period of a rising CalPERS UAL environment due to recent either losses or underperformances. And so on top of the labor costs themselves, the city is needing to pay additional amounts with respect to the unfunded actuarial liability with CalPERS. So those are two main factors that are driving the labor cost piece, while positions are not necessarily changing by that much.
So if I ask you to find some savings from all this budget, how much is the savings that we have from last year to this year? You already addressed that economic downtrend that we fear that our sales are down, and this is very cautious budget, but I don't see huge amount of savings with that. Would you elaborate and show me where the savings are, or are we thinking about any strategy to save some good amount of money?
Mayor, Council, Ian Daly, Finance Director. A couple points on that. So sales tax, we are recommending the budget be lower than the current year's fiscal year's budget. This is intentionally being conservative with where we think revenues are going, specific to sales tax and utility users tax being the main drivers there. So that's included in our 10-year financial plan as being realistic. And while being realistic, we're still able to put forward the capital plan and afford the positions that are all included. Should the economic condition deteriorate further, other measures would include holding positions vacant, staffing reductions, defunding capital improvement plan efforts, to name a few. But staff's cautious 10-year model doesn't see a need to do any of those things. We see a path of balance over the next 10 years, taking our conservative revenue approach, continuing to fund the positions that exist, provide the services to the community, and attempt to invest as best as we can in our capital assets.
Okay, so we're pretty conservative. I was saying we still have all those options on the table in case we fear something's coming in the next 6 to 8 months.
All of those options are always available at council's direction, though, as mentioned, we feel that we're being conservative in our assumptions and feel comfortable with the path that's being recommended before your honorable body tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Daly. I may come back with more questions. Thank you for your help.
Thank you. Councilman Gerson.
Try not to repeat my colleagues. Number one, we're having a public hearing, arguably the most important public hearing that we conduct over the course of the year, which is our budget. And once again, we're here after midnight. I know this was a criticism that was taken even while I've been on the council. And I slept in this morning. I actually slept till 5 a.m. So having a budget conversation, even for me, after 19 plus hours is a little much. And I think we should be having a budget hearing when we had a full audience today, and I would like to see them participate and know, because it is so incredibly important. But one of the things that even at 12:30 in the morning, I noticed on page 51, the list of parks that we're covering has changed. How many parks have fallen off the list since the last time I saw the budget and the projections over years?
I would have to do a full side-by-side. Some things that would be falling off that immediately come to mind is Walteria Park, and it's an affordability, continuing to push that out. Originally in last year's CIP, reimagining the entire site was part of, I want to say, year 3 or 4 of the capital plan. And only in the tail end of this is it even now considered to start looking at master planning and designing. So a lot of what's happening here is needing to push things out, fund and focus what's kind of going on, and see those efforts through. It's purely an affordability tug of war that we're playing with here.
Like, for example, obviously, because used it my whole life. Like, for example, Hickory Park used to be on there. Hickory Park no longer appears on the list. Is just one that I noticed right off the bat. So I'm curious what was taken off and why it's taken off, and why we aren't giving love to all of our parks, because they all need some love.
Mayor, Council, Ian Daly, Finance Director, we completely agree. We would love to be able to see more investment happening at more of the locations. We're doing our best to distribute it throughout. The court resurfacing projects I mentioned was one of those efforts to try to touch a number of locations and provide some significant improvement, though it really boils down to affordability and trying to prioritize things in the worst condition, though recognizing what we covered tonight, we know that many things need a lot of attention.
Your Honor, Danny Santana, City Manager's Office. Councilman Gerson, would you like a side-by-side comparison, as Mr. Daly indicated, could be provided maybe on the next point that we convene on the 20th?
And an understanding of why we're eliminating promises. These are things that have been on the budget, in the plan, even discussed at our district update meeting just a few weeks ago with Mr. LaRock present and confirming with the public that that's something that's coming. Knowing at that park in particular, the comments over the last 3 years about conditions of the bathrooms. I know we're talking about court resurfacing. The tennis court there is, in bad shape. So it's the one of the two with the rocket ship. I know we've, given some love to the rocket ship park, but we do have 2 rocket ships in our park system. And just, yes.
Councilman, if I might interject on the Hickory Park comment, in reviewing the capital plan, there was 43,000 or so noted there. Staff felt with the investments being made through the operating budget, we'd be able to make improvements to that sort of scale and scope, not so much through the capital plan, but through the operating budget. So Hickory Park, the bathroom reno is very much still on staff's radar specifically. And then the other was following through on Alta Loma Park. I know that was discussed at that District 6 meeting. Additional funding is needed there to fully address that, and that's why that additional $570,000, if I can read correctly, was included in this budget cycle to make sure we can actually complete the effort.
Okay. So placed in other parts of the budget that aren't listed here that people will ask me about, but okay. I'm going to pull up page 32. I'm going to be even more of a prick this evening. So I'm looking at this travel budget. One of the things that stood out was a comment you made that money can be transferred all around with no longer coming before the council. And I just remember not that long ago that someone asked for some of their money to be transferred to someone, and there was a lack of council concurrence. And knowing that a majority kind of establishes policy, I'm wondering why that is not extending beyond. Why are we talking about that we no longer will have that conversation up here?
Mayor and council, it was just mentioned as an option for council's consideration, purely that. So
Okay.
It doesn't have to be that.
Is that a new policy? Because it sounded like policy as it was being.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm trying to City Manager. There was a concept council had contemplated in the past. That's why we're bringing it for your consideration. Staff will take direction at council's desire as far as pooling funds or leaving it more finite as prescribed in the budget, and we'll respond to your request. And if I may, one more thing, I do apologize for iteming the last item on a very busy council night. We will leverage between now and the 20th to advertise to the community, and we'll ask that this item be considered the first for prior to the other 2 hearings. Thank you.
Because I'm already looking at the range of travel. So let's see. So someone who has the least number of trips could possibly have access to 1, 4, 6. So somewhere between 6 and 9 trips, depending on what committee you're on or not, and transferring around. I don't know. I just feel like there needs to be more accountability, and that I know there's a lot of community concern, and I don't want anything to slip under the radar. And just make sure that we are transparent on this, because it is an area that the community has expressed a desire to know what we're doing, what we're using, what we're not using. So, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Councilman Gerson. I think I have a comment on page 32, and that's because I think you guys sent us a memo about page 32. So I think we talked about that with the finance director and assistant city manager. I actually, you know, if I personally think it's okay with the transferring the budget if, and we could just come to the council if we would just want to make it transparent, just tell folks. But I think let's go down to just, I'm just going to pick something just to see local meetings and meals. I don't know if most of us exceed our 250. I think since I've been on the council with Councilman Matucci since 2018. It's been 250 since then, I think. I think it used to be 250 and mayor was 350, if I'm not correct. You can verify. I'm just thinking, you know, just with everything, our travel costs and meals and adjustment, this is not big dollar item. I'm suggesting that maybe those numbers get increased by $50. I'm talking small items, just in principle, because I don't know how each person used their monthly expense, but if it's been that way for 7, 8 years, maybe we should just adjust it just a little bit. My suggestion would be just make it 300. The way that you're suggesting it, Ian, about the budget round, but the area that's state legislative, federal legislative, and general economic, are those, I just want to make sure, especially their sensitivity, are you being suggested those could be moved around between the top and the middle, potentially, or they, you know, the 7,500, 7,500, and 1,750, they stay in that grouping, basically, you know, advocacy and economic development. So that will stay as a grouping.
We'd like
so,
to keep that separate.
Yeah, so those don't become fluid.
We don't want to commingle those funds. We're recommending we call them out and we budget to them.
Right, and I know the case that we're talking about when Councilman Tucci wanted to donate, you know, his unused travel budget to me, that would be that middle section.
Correct.
That's what's being suggested.
Yeah, that Mayor and Council Ian Daly, Finance Director, that comment was specific to that middle section.
Right,
I wasn't
okay.
clear
I
about
just
that,
want to make
so,
sure that's
thank
what
you.
we're talking about, so it doesn't go through those gray lines. The only other thing that I'm thinking is just 1, 2, 3. At least my travel budget. I think we talked about that in the meeting. If you talk about 2 National League of Cities, 2 U.S. Conference of Mayor, that's 4, and maybe 1 Cal Cities. I was thinking maybe that's 5 trips, whatever that number comes out to be. Again, small numbers. I'm just labeling the conferences we go to. Are there any other ones? I'm assuming those dollar figures you just used based on whatever current travel. I know in the past, if those are adjusted, you know, the similar comment I made about the local meals and meetings. I assume those are really adjusted to current airfare and things like that.
Mayor and Council Ian Daly, Finance Director, numbers derived and included here are generally based on current costs, and then we could also allow these costs to escalate by inflationary factors like we do with any other sort of material, professional service, or training, travel, membership dues line as well, so that it keeps pace.
Yeah. Okay. At least that's just my recommendation for that table. I assume, because I know most of us who travel, we're using allocations for the last few years, the same budget, but then the airline cost has gone up, you know, Uber cost has gone up. I just want to make sure these are really adjusted for those.
And I think we adjusted these numbers from last year. Are those the same numbers as last year?
Mayor and Council Ian Daly, Finance Director, these numbers definitely have been revised from the current budget. Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. I think those are my suggestions for change. I know they're small numbers, these were just counting.
We'll bring those back in our next budget as for decision points for council.
I think, going to page 6, I think that was Councilman Shake's question, I think. Oh, yeah, I'm
Economic
assuming
development.
those are in part of general economic
Yes.
development. Should you choose to go to like a ICS or ISCS or CES, it goes in that bucket. That's how I'm interpreting. But it's only if you choose to go. I think, sometimes we don't all go. And page 6, I just want to make sure, Councilman Sheikh, I know you asked that question. It was a question I had. Because that 81.5 million, it was just a way, I think, I asked for that clarification too, because, we had a projection in some charts that says by the end of this fiscal year, 81 million was going to be our reserves. And that was the same that goes back to when you were talking about 2019, the 581K. So now you're helping us reset the definition of what is reserve and what can be moved and not. So we probably just need more help going forward, because a lot of us are stuck on the 81. Now you're saying it's 68, but I think you're trying to help us, and but it's going to take a couple of times, because someone will say, hey, you're at 81 million. How come you're at 68 now? But you're really finding it more proper.
Mayor and Council, Ian Daly, Finance Director. That's exactly correct. And then we'll make sure to include the sort of level of detail and structure so that we can continue to track that 81 million, so to speak. To explain that a little bit further on this slide, you'd be in the right column, the FY24-5 new estimate. You'd be adding the row that is Economic Anomaly Reserve and the unassigned together. The sum of those two would be the equivalent of the prior 81 million under assigned that you were referencing.
Oh,
But
right.
we'll include this format going forward.
Understand.
So as we
No,
evolve in this new
got it. I know
structure.
doing math in public is dangerous. So if you add the 68-ish million plus the 12.7 million, that should add up to your 81.6-ish million. Okay.
That's exactly
I
correct,
thought I'd just share that. I know I had a problem tracking that number as well. So thank you for putting this table together. I appreciate it. Okay, any other? I think those are the two that I found. No, really, this is, I think each time we do one of these reviews, it gets better, and I understand. And I know my colleague here, 12 midnight to doing the finance review, but I think it was a non-intention to do a public hearing with an empty chamber here. I think most of us today saw how the meeting went, and so thank you very much. All right, I think at this moment, I'll take a motion for the close of public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Start voting, please. Your Honor, that motion carried with Councilmember Kalani absent.
All right, and to make a note that this is a motion to close a public hearing, and we will have our next public hearing on June. Oh, May.
Mayor will be adding one, so May 20th will be the next public hearing, and then the third one will be June 3rd, and that will be the conclusion of the budget process theoretically, and adoption of resolutions accordingly. So May
Okay.
20th would be the next one.
Right. I was reading the script, but I think in your package here you did say May 20th. So next public hearing is May 20th. So we're gonna have that early in the meeting, and I think we're done. Right. So I'm gonna go all the way back down to no agency agendas. This is oral communications number 2. I'm gonna be as fast as I can. And we're going to abide by the Brown Act. If anyone spoke in the first oral, you cannot speak again in the second one. And I don't see anyone in the public. Anyone in the public wants to make any comments? I don't see any. So let's come back to council orals. Tonight starts with Councilwoman Lewis, who is still awake.
I am still awake, but I'm a vampire anyway. I just want to wish all of the mothers out there happy Mother's Day, happy Heavenly Mother's Day for those who are up above. and relax and enjoy your Sundays.
Thank you. Councilman Matucci.
Yes, thank you, and yes, happy Mother's Day to everyone out there. Thank you.
Good job on your Italian yesterday. I was very impressed. Councilman Shake.
Thank you, Mayor. Same here. Happy Mother's Day to all mothers. And I'm in a little trouble. Today's my wife's birthday, and I'm here. And just want to say happy birthday.
Today, as then,
Yeah,
like
maybe I
in
have to stay
Wednesday?
with you today. Yeah.
Just want to clarify, when you said today, you mean Wednesday or you meant Tuesday?
Let's close the meeting.
Okay, okay. Okay, well, you said today, that's why.
It is today.
Councilman Gerson. All right, that's a good night. Councilman Kaji.
Oh, midnight. Oh.
Good night.
Yeah, yesterday.
All right, and just want to thank everyone for staying with our council meeting. And if you missed anything, it is recorded. I'll take a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
I motion to adjourn tonight's meeting till Tuesday, May 13th, 2025, 5 p.m. for closed session in this very chambers.
Second.
Start voting, please.
Let's close
Your Honor,
that.
that motion carried with Councilmember Kalani absent.
Good night, 12:45 a.m.